Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto awakens his parents' memory Chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Flames of Azure and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Bored blue eyes stared onto an arena that they were meant to fight in. By they, that would be him and the other participants of the Chunin exams. He didn't fully remember entering, but the facade had, and that is what irked him, among other things. Ever since he had awoken, it had been one head-scratching situation after another. He had to find his teachers, not the scarecrow that was Kakashi, who seemed disinterested in everything, but claimed to be his teacher. Gah! What was going on? Nothing was making sense. Memories of his past and the facade were clashing and it hurt his head. However, he at least knew who he was. He was Naruto Uzumaki, a ninja of the Hidden Leaf. At least something good had happened while he was gone. As soon as he woke up in the thoroughly destroyed clearing that he knew was caused by his razor wind jutsu, many things happened which lead him to where he was now, in this arena. He knew he had to fight at one point, something he had been always prepared to do, but now he knew he was forced to fight thanks to the words of the Hokage, who looked older now. That much time had passed? Terrific. Those bored eyes watched a boy named Sasuke Uchiha walk down into the area to fight some unremarkable shinobi with a covering over his mouth and dark glasses to cover for his identity, even though he was a shinobi of the leaf. Right, sure he was. But apparently Sasuke was his teammate along with some pink-haired girl named Sakura Haruno. She was annoying from the little time he knew her. He grunted to himself as he thought back to how he awoke, his facade connecting a few things for him as those memories surfaced. Flashback. Angry blue eyes glared dangerously at sickly yellow slits for eyes that belonged to Orochimaru of the Sannin. Not that he really knew that, for he never paid attention in the academy. All he knew was that this man had done something to Sasuke and thoroughly freaked out Sakura. The Kyuubi brat. The Sannin said pleasantly as he blocked Naruto's kunai with his own hand like it was nothing. No, like he was nothing. So good of you to join us, but I have no use for you. Begone! Before Naruto could react, the snake Sannin slammed a glowing blue fist into his gut, making him feel far weaker than he should. Then, he was easily flung into the waiting maw of a giant snake, that quickly slithered away, causing Sakura to cry out, knowing that there was nothing that she could do as it went on its way. Almost to the snake's strange stomach, Naruto raged and fought with all his might, no matter how weak he now felt. He didn't know it, but that seal that Orochimaru put on him was glowing and interacting with another seal on his chest. Both pulsed angrily as he fought the snake and their effects. Suddenly Naruto built up his chakra to a level that increased with every minute that could rival most jonin, and spoke a jutsu that he had never used before, like it had just come to him. It felt familiar though, like an old friend. Wind style. Razor sphere. With that bellow, the wind both inside and outside the snake picked up, and the giant beast knew this was its end. For the next moment, it was gone in blood and gore inside a steadily growing sphere of violent wind with Naruto in the middle, his form all splayed out and his eyes different, one white and the other with golden spinning circles around the pupil, almost looking like an atom. The two glowing seals pulsed one more time before it looked like they dissolved, his eyes going back to normal as well. In that moment, the sphere exploded, sending those violent cutting winds everywhere, the sound echoing all over the forest of death and the rest of the village, like a bomb going off. And with it, hurricane force winds that pelted all the Chunin exams participants for all but a brief moment, but still enough to do a lot of damage. Hours later those same blue eyes awoke, but they were different somehow, like someone else was behind the wheel. Naruto dragged himself to a nearby stream to wash himself off, noticing his orange clothes were nothing but rags thanks to the stomach acid of the snake. However, he just looked at the color with confusion. Why are my clothes orange? He asked no one in particular before his eyes widened briefly in panic. Why do I sound older? Looking at himself in the water more closely this time, he was indeed a few years older. Early teens if he had to guess. Slowly his mind came out of the fog as he widened his eyes again and got up too quickly, and about fell flat on his face. Where are my teachers? Then his eyes narrowed in anger as he unconsciously traced the scar that ran up and down his left eye. Where is Danzo? He growled in anger. Oh yes, it was coming back now. He was defending his teachers from Danzo, which gave him that scar. After that though, everything was a blank. Ugh! Naruto clutched his head in agony as memories flooded his mind in a complete jumble. Impossible, he had led another life. Of that he could at least see. Panting, he looked back at his reflection and saw that the eye with the scar was briefly different in his stress. An eye he knew too well, the eye of one of his teachers, the unmistakable eyes of the Sharingan. Shusoi's eye? Just what is going on? What happened? No! I have to calm down, my teachers would kick my ass to the next village if they saw me now. Naruto reasoned, calming his breathing down as he took stock of his situation from his jumble of memories. Right, so I am in the forest of death, meaning I am part of the Chunin exams, which means I am a full shinobi like I wanted. Another pulse and his face grew annoyed, at himself. Too bad I was an idiot. No! He was no fool like the memories showed him. It wasn't him. Those memories had to be fake. They were just a facade. As soon as he reasoned that, he looked himself over and grimaced. He had to get better clothes before he ventured further into the forest to look for what he could only assume were his teammates. No, the facade's teammates, if they could be called that. Walking back into the clearing he woke up in, he saw the destruction that he recognized as one of his more powerful jutsu. Not only has my body grown but so has my power. I guess having it locked away for so long built it up to this point. I will have to get used to both. The blonde sighed to himself as he began the process of looking for the remains of the snake his jutsu had killed. There wasn't much, as the violent winds had even shredded the bones and scattered everything. It was enough, especially considering that this might have been a summon of sorts. Odd how it hadn't gone up in a poof of smoke. He got to work making snakeskin clothes, a skill he picked up when he was younger, and he preferred the forest to living in the village. Crafting a pair of pants and a shirt with the skin was annoying and offered little protection, but they would have to do. A plus though was that they helped him blend into the forest more, so that was good, even if had to go barefoot. Next, he went about collecting the bone fragments. Those seemed to be sharp enough to use as weapons at least. The next moment though, he heard the creaking of the trees he destroyed and looked at the edge of clearing to see the massive head of the snake, barely intact before it crashed to the ground. Inspecting it, he grinned darkly. Yes, the fangs were still usable. They would make great weapons. After searching ground zero of his reawakening, he made a small camp in case his potential teammates were still alive and looking for him. That was doubtful. They never shied away from showing how much they disliked his facade's presence. So here he was, trudging through the forest of death for better gear and people in general. To his luck, he heard a scream in the distance and roar. His first interaction with someone new after so long, and he was to save them. He couldn't see that going wrong. Oh joy, he mumbled. Karin was a bit small for her age, not nearly as tall as her teammates once were, but that sometimes actually helped her. Not this time. After being saved by some handsome guy from a bear after getting separated from her teammates in this damn forest, she thought she was in the clear, only to find them dead and being eaten by 2 tigers. This, of course, made her scream out in horror, which led her to now hiding from these huge beasts of prey. Normally, yes, they were already big, but this forest was all kinds of messed up and these 2 were far bigger than they should be, giving her teammates enough trouble that they were no match. She thought she was hidden up in a tree, so when the tigers seemingly left, she nearly panicked when they shook her tree. Soon, they lost interest and went back to their meal. She was just a snack for them. So imagine her surprise when a bored-looking blonde with clothes that looked like they were made of snakeskin casually walked down the path to see the 2 tigers enjoying their meal, paying him no mind. That right there kind of pissed her off, but thinking about it, he seemed to have taken the path that was not downwind and he didn't scream like she did. Bummer, seems I was too late. The blonde grumbled to himself, ready for anything these 2 large cats would throw at him. It seemed the snakeskin he wore was temporarily masking his scent, so he was ignored. That wasn't for long. Why? Because a roar shook the forest around him, making everything go silent. It would seem that the smell of blood had attracted other beasts of prey, and boy was it big. It was bigger than the tigers. It was a massive lion with a multitude of scars dancing on its body, painting a picture of its life. Oh, and it was looking directly at him. Masked scent be damned. Nope. Naruto said out loud as he started walking away, sending general confusion throughout all parties. That stunned silence was enough for Naruto to look right at Karin in the tree she was in to say, "You should run," before his slow walk shifted into an all-out sprint as the giant cats made chase. "You were going to leave me to die!" Karin screamed in rage as the blonde sitting across from her in his camp, calmly eating his lion meat in peace, sporting a new look. Including the snakeskin clothes, he now wore his kills proudly. The furs of the giant cats now an extra layer of protection, with the tiger heads acting as shoulder pads and the lion head acting as a hood and cape extension. It was kind of badass. Seeing as I was unsure of my current power, I offered you the advice of running, Naruto stated. Could have fooled me. The redhead raged. You took them down easily with those giant white weapons. Ah yes, the fangs of the giant snake. Useful tools in taking down giant cats with the venom still on them. It was only right to use them as makeshift arm swords that now hung on his belt. You only helped me because they nearly got me and I screamed for your help. You would have left me to get eaten alive like my teammates. Oh yeah, great first impression. A voice at the back of Naruto's head sounded, which made him almost wince. It seemed that the bleed between the 2 personalities was going to be a problem. Before, he usually didn't care about people well other than his teachers. Sighing in resignation, the furred blonde stared at the redhead, making her flinch. What's done is done. You are here now, so eat your meat before it gets cold. All right, she said timidly, a rather odd shift in her personality if you ask him, but he was trying not to care, but the bleed was making that difficult. Ugh, Naruto, he said. What? The redhead asked with big eyes. I said my name is Naruto. I figure I should give you my name since you will be with me as we make our way to the center of the forest. The sooner this part of the exams are over the better, and you can get back to your family. I guess that's fine. The girl replied disheartened. Was she really that weak? Oh, who was she kidding? She knew that answer and his offer of help was the best thing for her. Karin Uzumaki. Naruto's eyes widened for a fraction of a second before they went back to their unfeeling bored look. So I guess that makes us some form of relation then. I too am an Uzumaki. Huh. But you don't have red hair. She countered with surprise and bit of hope. Most Uzumaki have red hair. I never said the relation was perfect, Naruto stated as he took another bite of his meat, contemplating this new information. End flashback. Naruto barely watched as the Uchiha wiped the floor with his chakra-absorbing opponent, quite literally. But with the dark power that he had observed in the Forest of Death, he would have to look into that maybe. As he leaned against the wall away from his team, he turned his head to the left to see Karin still next to him, having not left his side ever since their family relation was known between them. It was kind of nice to say that. However, he frowned when he noticed a small blush on her face as she stared the Uchiha with awe. Another Uchiha fangirl terrific, he in a distant voice thought with annoyance for different reasons. After this exam was over, he would need to take care of the bleed his facade was causing, as the next fight started between an Aburame named Shino and some cocky little prick with his arm in a sling. He thought about what his future would hold with having family near him. He wasn't sure he wanted Karin to go back to the hidden grass with her only family in her dead mother as well as her teammates. From what he could guess, neither did she. A shuffling to his right reminded him of his other tag-along as she made herself comfortable on the floor, an annoyed blush on her face as she rubbed her broken leg. He smirked to himself at her prideful nature. It seemed she was not used to getting help from others. Flashback. This is gross. Karin shouted to her walking companion. The reason for her current freakout was because Naruto had fashioned a weapon for her in the form of 2 giant paws from one of the tigers. I cleaned them off, Naruto replied in confusion. Be at least happy that I am giving you a close-range weapon to fight potential targets, should the need arise. He made his case as they made their way through the forest the next day, having given up the thought that his teammates were searching for him. Not caring or they were injured, probably both. Still, it is gross. Karin whined. She was going to complain more when Naruto held his hand out to stop her and make her silent. She noticed that someone was ahead of them, but they were hobbling and looked to be in pain. That turned out to be true as the figure fell in a pain scream belonging to a girl. They slowly made their way over to her to see that she had the normal red and brown garb of a shinobi from the Hidden Stone village. She also had short black hair and bright pink eyes. So Hidden Stone was in this exam too? Interesting. He would have to ponder that later because she noticed them and chucked a kunai at him, which he caught with surprising ease. It must have shocked the girl because she was angry, but while looking right at the floor. What do you want? She said weakly, staring at the girl for a moment, and then at her leg, nodded to himself. The damn bleed was at work again. He should just leave her to die in this damn forest. After all, they were technically enemies, both exam-wise and village-wise. She seemed like she already resigned herself to death. But he couldn't just leave her like this. The facade's memory screamed for him to be better. So he grabbed a couple of nearby sticks and some leftover animal fur he still had on him to make a splint for the girl's broken leg, much to her shock. What are you doing? Why are you helping me? The girl asked in that weak voice, confusion and anger mixed in. Because someone else could have gotten it wrong. The blonde found himself saying, I am no medical ninja, but I know enough first aid to get the job done. Karin smiled at the sight. This act of kindness is what told her the truth. Naruto was a true Uzumaki to her. Her mother had told her about their clan. They were kind, but strong. However, it was their random acts of kindness that was their downfall. With each show of their power, they became feared. It just goes to show, no good deed goes unpunished, and the Uzumaki paid the ultimate price in the ninja world. The girl stared at Naruto like he was nuts. Like medic ninja are useful anyway. I bet they can't even fight. Naruto chuckled darkly at a secret he only knew. I wouldn't be too sure of that. After all, these people have an intimate knowledge of the human body. I am sure they could cause damage that way. Besides, Tsunade of the Sandine proved that notion wrong anyway. Whatever. The girl replied with an embarrassed blush. Who are you anyway? I am Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto replied as he finished with the makeshift cast on her leg. An Uzumaki, huh? I guess that would make Grandpa happy. The girl replied solemnly, not wanting to elaborate any further. Name's Katsuchi, don't you forget it. Very well, I won't, Naruto replied as he got up and held up a hand for her to take. She reluctantly took it to get herself back up and then slapped him away. I can take care of myself now, thank you very much. Naruto stared at her before shrugging and starting to walk off. He heard her grunt with exertion as she tried to walk and nearly fall. She didn't though, thanks to catching herself on a nearby tree. Looking back to the blonde as he walked away and the hesitant redhead with him, she grimaced and swallowed her pride. Wait, I need help. What was that? Naruto asked with a smirk as he faced the opposite direction. I said I need your help, okay? Katsuchi shouted, annoyed at the very fact that she needed his help at all. Her grandfather would be laughing at her if he saw this situation. It was ridiculous. Damn that blasted wind that forced her off her course and land in an awkward position, breaking her leg. I am tired and weak and need your help to get to the tower. Very well. Naruto stated. He was right next to her again, but with his back to her. Get on. Katsuchi hated feeling weak, but she had no choice other than to accept his help. So she let herself on his back to be carried. She still felt vindictive too for even needing his help. I still think you are an idiot for helping me. Naruto sighed. This is going to be a regular thing with you, isn't it? End flashback. The blonde smirked to himself as when he looked down at her, she looked away with an annoyed blush on her face. She was still pissed off that she needed his help to get anywhere. After their odd introduction, they had started to learn more about her. Like Karin, she lost her team to the forest. Not to the animals but to other Konoha ninja that had a beef with her village for one reason or another. Her only saving grace was the hurricane force winds he created in his reawakening that blew them away but put her off course to the point she fell and broke her leg. That was something he would not let her know that it was his fault. Good thing the medics got her a better cast, and once this part of the exam was over, they could help heal her better. They also learned that her grandfather was the Tsuchikage, but Naruto didn't care, something the girl took to heart. People back home didn't talk to her in fear of incurring his wrath. So she was alone. Well, she had her teammates, but they were dead now. It was also thanks to her and Karin that they were even able to get into the tower at all. It seemed that Naruto's teammates had given the scroll they had to Orochimaru as a peace offering, but he just destroyed it. That saved a lot of time, and they got a day's rest in the tower for the rest of the exams. Of course, Karin and Katsuchi were barred from participating any further in the exams, but there was no rule that they could not watch the preliminaries. Plus, they kept Naruto company. After all, he liked their presence better than his own team's. It seemed his facade's memories were correct and they cared little for him. He kept to himself and left them alone, something they took notice of but didn't comment on. However, their jonin often eyed him, catching on to there being something severely different about him. Naruto would have to keep an eye out for him. Looking back to the arena, it seemed that he had completely ignored Shino's win and the next battle entirely, with the puppet user winning his own match. So who was next? Paying more attention, he noticed it was between his female teammate, Sakura, and some other blonde, Ino, if he remembered correctly. A fight between two fangirls? Heh, that would just result in a slap fest probably. Not worth paying attention to. However, it made him think back to how he encountered his teammates. They were being attacked by the Sound team and Sakura was struggling by herself, so Team 10 came to her rescue. But Sasuke woke up and put that team down easily. It was interesting to watch, even if Sasuke was using that dark chakra. Thankfully Sakura managed to calm him down. He would have helped them if that need arose, but other shinobi were watching from the trees, so he doubted anyone needed his help. So then he made his presence known, shocking everyone at his change of clothes, the strange scar over his eye, and then his personality. For her credit, Sakura was happy to see him alive after being eaten by a giant snake, but that soon turned to anger that he chose then of all times to come back. She did what she normally did with him, and tried to punch him in the face. He put a stop to that by merely catching her fist, freaking everyone out. Usually he just took the punch but not anymore. He was no one's punching bag, even voicing as much. He called her annoying for it before informing them to follow him to the tower, daring the others to try and attack him. They never moved a muscle against him as they walked away. His team didn't even ask who their tagalongs were until they were in the safety of the tower. Huh! Done already? Naruto thought as he heard the announcement that Ino had won. It seemed that while he was lost in thought, Ino made Sakura quit by getting in her mind. The girl's willpower to continue on faltered when he didn't even cheer for her, which would have boosted her confidence a bit. That was pathetic. Katsuchi growled out next to him. Makes the rest of us kunoichi look bad. Naruto nodded, he had to agree. Something Kakashi noticed of his student with a narrowed eye. This was defiantly not like the blonde. The next two fights were rather interesting. Sure, the matchup between a wind user and a weapon user was severely one-sided, but it showed that not all of the women in Konoha were weak girls pinning after one guy. He also thought that the fight between Shikamaru and Kin of the Sound was interesting as well. It showed just how clever Shikamaru was, making him wonder if the lazy genius would figure out what happened to him or not. The lazy had been staring at him quite a bit more than usual after all, but finally it came to his fight. Naruto Uzumaki vs Kiba Inuzuka. Ha! This will be over quick. We got lucky Akamaru. Kiba boasted as he and his hound made their way down to the arena. He was a boastful guy, but even he had been wary of Naruto's new look. He knew something had happened in the forest, but he wasn't sure what. As soon as Naruto got down to the arena with him, he boasted some more. You might as well give up, you idiot. You were the dead last in the academy after all. You can't beat me. Kiba smirked cruelly at the blonde. In fact, I'll just become Hokage in your place. How about that? Naruto merely smiled. Go ahead then, Kiba, take that facade's dream, but you have to beat me first. The mention of his facade brought the Order Generation's attention on him. Now they knew something was up with him. But can you do it? Quit acting tough, you idiot. Your new look won't do much here. Kiba growled as the proctor told them they could fight. Who's acting? Naruto replied with a smirk as he unleashed his killer intent that the whole room felt. But the older generation knew this was something different as Kiba fell to his knees, panting with wide, fearful eyes. Do you like it? Intent of the predator is something I picked up in the forest. It makes you feel that primal fear we all have of the beast that hunts you in the night. I got the full blast of it from these cats I am wearing. The fear was that much worse for Kiba because of his connection to the animal kingdom thanks to Akamaru. It made him want to turn tail and run, he was hyperventilating so much. Surprisingly, it was Akamaru that brought him out of it, making him calm down. That was not cool. He shouldn't have done that, Kakashi muttered as he stared at Naruto. Why not? Sakura asked, still a little pissed that she lost her own fight, if it could be called that. You shouldn't ever use something like that against a comrade, no matter the situation. Kakashi explained. He knew something was up with Naruto, and he couldn't rule out that it was because of the two ladies he was hanging around. But he felt that wasn't it. This Naruto was another person altogether. One look at the Hokage showed that he too thought the same, but the old man seemed to have an air of recognition around him. I'm sorry, but I don't care. It is a fight, after all. I am just glad that wasn't enough to take you out. Naruto grinned. The anticipation of having an actual fight was exciting. He would get to test the limits of his older body now. Fighting animals was one thing, fighting a human was another. So let's get wild. Fine. Kiba growled as he tossed a pill to Akamaru, and the dog got bigger before they both performed the man-beast clone, the both of them looking like feral versions of Kiba. Let's see you survive this. Clearly the fear from earlier had provoked him and made him go all out. Good. Naruto replied with a smile, you are taking this seriously. He took out the makeshift arm blades that he made from the snake fangs and momentarily grimaced. He knew these weren't going to survive the fight. They were severely damaged by the giant cats. Fang over Fang! Kiba screamed as the duo spun towards him with such violent force that Naruto had to sidestep to get away from them. The blonde anticipated the Inuzuka to bend back around to try and strike at him again. As soon as the spinning duo struck, Naruto blocked with his bladed arms in an X formation. When that happened, he heard the crack of the fangs before they shattered to pieces, causing everyone watching to have anxiety to certain degrees. But Naruto had planned for this. He saw that the attack had slowed down to a point that he was able to grab the duo by the arms before flinging them away. Getting back up, Kiba eyed him wearily. He was now seeing that there was something seriously different about his old classmate. How the hell do you even know when to do that? He asked as he rubbed his arm, a little sore from the throw. Naruto closed eyes as he smiled in mirth. Now Kiba, why would I go and tell you that? You will find that I am full of surprises. For example, he suddenly snapped his eyes open with knowing grin. Ninja art, enslavement of the slain. Naruto walked backward as the animals that made up his clothes made seamless transitions off his body and rushed towards Kiba, ready to maul him to death. What the fuck? Kiba shouted as he defended himself. Impossible, how is he doing that? Karina asked with wide eyes. What's that? Asked the curious Kakashi as he too tried to figure out Naruto's jutsu. This was something he never displayed before, and it concerned him. This is genjutsu, but is affecting a wide area, us even. The illusion master replied, catching the others' attention as they attempted to break it on themselves to see what was really going on. Kakashi did the same with a wide eye. To affect that much area, you would have to have massive chakra, he replied, breaking it as well to see Naruto just standing there with a smirk, and he was spinning his finger around for some reason. Oh right, this was Naruto he was talking about. This is something most genjutsu's masters spend their whole lives trying to do, and he just makes it look easy. Kurenai replied with an annoyed look. Kakashi just chuckled, still as unpredictable as ever. I guess it is to be expected that he could do something like this. After all, he does have a lot of chakra. As to how much I never checked. That was something the others caught and looked back to the blonde in shock. He really was surprising. Both Kiba and Akamaru winced in the man-beast forms. These beasts monsters were too much for them. Once the giant cats cornered them, the large snake ensnared the duo, steadily squeezing the life out of them. Ugh! This is unreal! Kiba screamed in horror. The pain from his wounds were intensifying with each constriction that snake caused. So focused on that pain, he screamed in agony until he felt himself fall to the ground. He and Akamaru had unconsciously broken the genjutsu by merely forcing on their pain and let the chakra do the work. Seeing this, Naruto frowned. His teachers taught him about genjutsu, and he thought he created a very powerful one. But if Kiba could break it just like that, it meant that his control over this special genjutsu had weakened over time. What the Kiba skittishly replied as he looked around him to see those long-dead animals gone, like they were never there. It was then he noticed that his wounds were still there, and they hurt like hell. What? Why are my wounds still here if that was an illusion? He shouted, trying to reason mostly to himself, but everyone heard it. That is a simple one. Naruto replied, catching their attention as he leisurely made his way over to Kiba in a slow, agonizing way that freaked Kiba out. If one believes that hard they are that wounded or dead in a dream, it becomes that way in real life. The same could be said for my special illusion technique, especially if they are getting blasted by the emotion of fear like you have been dealt with. Naruto smirked cruelly at the fear-riddled boy. And you just look hysterical, looks like I have to put the dog down. With that, he did a throwing motion with his finger. But it seemed like there was nothing there until the other Kiba that was Akamaru was knocked back on his back to a dog and looking bloody. Temari narrowed her eyes from next to her brother's. That was wind jutsu. Huh? How can you tell? Kankuro asked. Didn't you see him before? He was twirling his finger in the air. At first I thought it just meant he really didn't care about that boy's wounds, but I saw the air shift a bit, like it had begun to spin. He threw nearly invisibly rings of sharpened air. Temari replied. It was enough to say that the male blonde was dangerous in his own right, and with the way Gaara was staring at the blonde, it was concerning. Akamaru! Kiba shouted at his friend, but got no response. The very thought of losing his best friend since he was little was horrible. He didn't want to be alone, so it was of little surprise when that fear turned to rage, directing it right at the blonde who didn't look like he cared one way or another. You'll pay for that, Kiba roared as he used a single vortex of Fang over Fang to plow right through the blonde, like he drilled a hole through his very being. Heh, so you're angry? Naruto replied as blood gushed from his mouth and the wound in his chest. He turned his to look at a recovering Kiba, who by now saw what he did and was horrified that he just about killed a fellow leaf ninja. But the way Naruto was looking at him was scaring him to death. The fear of losing someone close to you is horrible. You will be forever stuck with that feeling of loneliness that it can be unbearable, he said, speaking from the heart this time before his smile became something that looked insane, the blood on his teeth just making it worse. Bye. In a poof of smoke, the blonde was gone. Kiba heard a light shuffle behind him and as he turned his head slightly, he saw the blonde looked fine and a bored look on his face. That horrible intent was back, paralyzing him. But I have been alone all my life, he said before tapping Kiba on the spine, sending him into a world of pain and agony as he screamed. Naruto noticed the sickly-looking proctor of the exam finally coming towards him with a question on his lips, so he spoke before being asked. A useful lightning jutsu, isn't it? Disruption attacks the nerve system directly, causing all nerve endings to fire all at once and your own bioelectricity to turn against you. It basically makes you a useless pile of pain on the floor. Hyatt nodded nervously at as he watched Kiba writhe in agony. How long will it last? A few seconds at best, Naruto said with a shrug. I only tapped him with it, so no long-lasting effects will happen to him. Now if my hand lingered, he left that to the imagination, making a shiver go down Hyatt's spine. Just goes to show that use of the lightning style and a bit of medical knowledge can go a long way, Naruto replied with a carefree smile as he cast a quick look at Katsuchi up in the stands, like it was an inside joke. Said girl just scoffed, muttering he was just a show-off. Turning back to the proctor, he asked, so you going to call it or what? After a coughing fit, Hyatt nodded. Naruto Uzumaki is the winner. The blonde nodded before walking over to Akamaru's downed and bloody form and carefully scooped the puppy in arms. He internally breathed a sigh of relief when he found the puppy was still alive, the wind attack just hitting spots that bled a lot but did no real damage, just stunning the dog. Walking over to a recovering Kiba, he carefully gave the puppy back to his stunned partner. Naruto's carefree smile returned as he said, he'll be alright. Good fight. Kiba just nodded dumbfounded as the blonde walked away. As Naruto made his way back up to the stands, his carefree smile turned in a frown. His physical skills had diminished, feeling sore from merely catching Kiba and tossing him away was not acceptable, nor was his control over his chakra. He had intended to only throw one wind disc, not 5. And normally, his genjutsu was unbreakable to low-level ninja. In short, that display was pathetic. It might have been impressive to some, but not to his standards. He would need to work on everything later on, that much was for sure. Back to the way he used to be. Then there was the trouble with the bleed of the two personalities. He was taught to fight without emotion, but the facade wasn't. The combination seemed bloodthirsty, almost psychotic. That needed to be taken care of. After the rest of the matches were done and over with, that left 10 contestants left. Sasuke, Shino, Kankuro of the Desert, Ino, Temari of the Desert, Shikamaru, Naruto, Neji, Gaara of the Desert, and Dosu of Sound. It was still a lot, so Hate mentioned that the final exams would be different this year. There would be a few three-way battles so that they wouldn't take up the nobles' time. The battles ended up being Naruto vs Neji vs Shino, Kankuro vs Ino vs Dosu, Temari vs Shikamaru, Sasuke vs Gaara. With that, everyone was dismissed for their month-long training session, but before Naruto could leave, the Hokage confronted him. Naruto, come to my office, it is time we talked and bring your new friends. So it was finally time to learn the truth. Chapter 2. Naruto frowned deeply as he sat in a seat across from the Hokage in his office. Karin and Katsuchi were currently on account of certain matters that were village secrets, to which the old man made Naruto remember that fact. I see, Naruto stated, not happy about where the conversation had gone. It turns out that when Danzo attacked Shursui Uchiha for his eyes with Naruto trying to defend him, alongside Itachi later on, things did not go well. Naruto lost his eye, Shursui committed suicide to escape Danzo and give Itachi new power, and then Itachi was ordered to kill off the Uchiha clan to stop a potential coup. Then, Itachi left, leaving his brother alive. Where he went, he was not told, but he felt there was far more to this than he was being told. Damn, you made him kill his family? That is harsh, Naruto grumbled, eyeing the Kage. The old man sighed, it was a decision I regret every day. Danzo forced our hands back then. Itachi loved this village as a whole too much to see it embattled in civil war, much like the Mist village is. I know. Naruto sighed. He talked about the coup with Shursui when they thought I was not listening. Can't say I am surprised, even if there were better solutions, like make Itachi or Shursui Hokage. That would have shut them up. I know that, but Danzo's paranoia worsened the events, causing the attack and forcing my hand. That man has always been a pain. I even had him disband his root program, but I know him, he didn't. He follows his own rules. In fact, I barely ever see him in the village anymore. The Hokage shook his head on that matter at the moment as he didn't want to dwell on some troubling info he had learned. But what about you? I knew about your training from Itachi and some of your personality from back then. How are you feeling? How am I feeling? Naruto asked with a frown. Horrible. I learned that all of this happened, and in order to protect me, Itachi put some crappy seal on me to make me a different person and make me forget everything. He wasn't even that good at seals. He ranted, pacing now in the man's office. I wake up and everything is changed. I'm older, my skills have worn over time with the facade's personality, and my mind had fractured, taking his seat in front of the Hokage again, who looked sad for good reason. Itachi really didn't know what he was doing trying to protect me with a rush seal like that. I don't think my mind just consists of this me talking to you, and that idiot of a facade. I think there is more going on. I was never like that in battle. Hokage got up from his chair and looked out onto his village from the window. He knew the truth, so he had to play this right. There was a plan after all. You are right, things have changed. My main concern though right now is Orochimaru's involvement in the Chunin exams and now you. So, I want you to meet Inoichi Ino's father at the hospital tomorrow alongside Inoki's granddaughter. You are going to give her a mental evaluation as well? Naruto asked, surprised. The old Hokage just chuckled as he sat back down. Heavens no, I just want to get her broken leg healed up the best we can. I don't want Inoki breathing down my neck for his family being in danger. He then gave Naruto a serious look. That is why I am having her and the Karin girl stay in your apartment complex until the exams are over. With you being the actual owner of the building, I am sure that won't be a problem. I can make it work, Naruto replied with a shrug. They can keep me company while I train myself back to acceptable levels. Speaking of that, the Hokage replied with a smile. Itachi often talked about your training and said you were already mid-Chunin level back then, making me believe that you will be able to blow away the competition and become a real Chunin once these exams are over, especially with Shursui's eye that was implanted in you. You knew about my eye, heh? Naruto asked as he traced the scar. Come on Naruto, Itachi was a great ninja, but he didn't really have much skill in seals or medical ninjutsu. He got me involved to the point I had to make your new eye transplant an S-class secret. Only you will be able to reveal it if you so choose. I see. Naruto replied as he went quiet for a moment before smirking. Once I learn how to use it, it could be a great secret weapon, indeed. The Hokage shot back with a smirk of his own. Now you may go, I have many things to get ready for the finals. The blonde nodded before leaving. The Hokage sighed in his chair once he was sure the boy was gone. Turning to the pictures on the wall, he smiled sadly at one of them. An older blonde-haired man stared back. It is only a matter of time before he figures it out on his own now that the seal is gone. But there are other things in motion that are more important. I fear I will join you soon if what I have heard from Itachi is true about my old teammate. He paused for a moment before smiling. But they will be in good hands. Huh, nice place. You really own this whole complex? Katsuchi asked. She hung on to Naruto's back as they made their way to their rooms. Luckily, there was a 2-bedroom apartment next to Blonde's. Yeah, the old man gave it to me because the last owner died before I was born and for some reason, thought it would be a good gift for me. Naruto replied with a frown. Now that he thought about it, that did seem sketchy. Well whatever, you own it now and I want to get some rest. Karin cut in and then took Katsuchi off Naruto before the blonde had a chance to sing, and then a door was slammed in his face. Okay then. Naruto replied with a deadpan stare. He could have sworn Karin had a devious look on her face, but he was unsure why. Shrugging, he walked in his apartment next door, thinking it was probably nothing he had to truly worry about. Then again, with that sudden shiver down his back, he wasn't sure. They had just gotten the IWA native girl out of her hospital room and she had a shit-eating grin. It seemed the medical ninjas here really knew what they were doing and her broken leg was almost healed. She could now put some weight on it, but not for long. Hey, it was progress, and she wasn't complaining for now anyway. So are we getting the blonde's brain checked out or not? Katsuchi asked with a smirk. Or is he just your typical blonde? Ha ha. Naruto grumbled as he halfway supported her down the hall to his own room where he was to meet Inoichi. He didn't notice it, but Karin had that devious look on her face again. Once there, they were met with an older blonde man in Jonin attire. Plus, Ino was smiling at them from next time him. Ino? Why are you here? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Dad said it was good training. Ino replied cheerfully. What, are you not happy to see me? I didn't say that, I was just asking. Naruto replied, not actually answering. In truth, he didn't have much interaction with the girl before and for some reason, wasn't too keen on caring. But a feeling was telling him that he would be seeing her more often. Enough Ino. Her father stated, stopping her from saying anything further. I will be teaching you another jutsu later. For now, I just want you to observe how I help Naruto with his issue. Turning to the boy, he asked. Are you ready? As I will ever be. Naruto replied with a shrug. Very well. The man said with a frown before he went through a few hand signs and then placing his thumb on the spot where Naruto's third eye would be. Ninja art, soul of the mind's eye projection. With that, the room around them went completely black. The girls looked around in awe and then disgust as the darkness around them quickly shifted into that of a leaky sewer. Before they could say anything, they too disappeared. They were still there, but they would not be able to interfere at all. Only observe. Looking around, Inoichi grimacing. This was not what I was expecting. What would you expect of someone with my past, and what I am? Naruto stated as they started walking down the hallway. He also noted with a grimace that he was back in his orange jumpsuit. Typically when someone is dealing with multiple personalities or close to it like you are, the landscape is that of a shattered mirror, the cracks representing the pieces of oneself. For it to be a sewer you would have had to be isolated all your life, feel hatred nearly every day, and have very low self-worth. Inoichi sighed sadly and a bit worried now that the girl might learn of Naruto's burden. For what it is worth, I am sorry for how our home has treated someone who should be a hero. It is fine, I have come to peace with it a long time ago. Naruto replied in a bored manner. Oh, have you now? Why lie to the man helping you? A voice rang out menacingly down the hallway. They ran towards it to find a room with a giant cage on the other end. In between them, the water of the sewer has risen but had not left the room. It was strange, especially when they walked out onto it like it was the floor itself. With each step they took, the water rippled. In the middle of the room, they stopped, looking deep into the darkness beyond the cage, expecting the voice coming from there. It is not our mutual friend speaking. The voice suddenly rang out, now loud, like it was all around them. Seeing something red glow beneath them, they looked back down at the water to find a strange sight. It was that of a giant red eye with the Uzumaki clan symbol as the chosen pattern upon its surface. It then rose up out of the water and stared at them, menacingly. Slowly it shrank as the water rose up to meet it, and then formed into that of a human. The darkness around it gave it shape and it looked like a very dark version of Naruto, but not at the same time. It was at this point, Inoichi noted that the water still surrounding them was tainted by this darkness, making him narrow his eyes. He hoped Naruto was ready to face his inner darkness. What are you? Naruto asked, a bit unnerved by this creature. The creature opened its eyes with a snap. One of just pure red while the other was the eye they saw earlier. All with a sinister smile. Who? I am you. Your true self. And how is that? I am your darkness, you fool. I am the true feelings of hatred you feel for this damnable village that hates and scorns your very existence, all because of this seal we have that should mark us as a hero on the level of the fourth Hokage. Hell, he wanted us to be seen as a hero, but people are stupid. The dark creature smiled even more then. But I guess I truly have to thank my existence to our teachers for giving us this eye. The curse of hatred never activated in Shure's way, but in us it was meant for us. It gave us so much power. For example, it smirked as it reached out a hand and the water swallowed Inoichi whole. What are you doing? Naruto shouted in panic, not liking how this was going, assuming control. The dark half replied gleefully as Naruto too was swallowed by the water, all the while a peal of dark laughter rang out. Gasping for air, Naruto took in his surroundings to find himself in front of a steel door. Opening it, he stepped into a very familiar room to the facade, the room where he always tried to escape. Iraka's classroom. It was fairly empty, there were transparent images of all his classmates. The only real people there were himself, and oddly enough, the facade. Now what is going on? He asked but widened his eyes. His voice sounded younger. Looking at his hands he noticed that they were that of a child's and he was wearing the black shirt and ripped up shorts of his old training gear. He didn't really know it, but his right eye was missing. I am not sure, kid, maybe you can tell me. The facade replied as he looked around the classroom. Ever since I got swallowed up by that giant snake, I have been in this room and I am getting sick of it. It can't be that bad. The kid replied. You are away from anything that can hurt you. Are you kidding me? The facade roared. It is here that I am reminded every day that I am nothing. No one ever wants me around, like they just want me to disappear. But I exist. By the end of it, the happy mask on the facade was nowhere to be seen and tears were endlessly flowing down his face, showing it wasn't physical pain, but that of deep emotional pain that one can only take so much of. And with the tears came the voices. It's him. Mom said to stay away from him. He's trouble. This kid ain't anything special. Get him. Look at the freak standing up for the other freak. He's such a loser. Dumbass. Just stay away. Can't you take a hint? Everyone hates you. Don't you know that? All the while these voices rang out and more, Naruto noticed the room had gotten darker as it began to be flooded by that awful dark liquid. Soon, it bubbled around the facade as he had a look of desperation of his face. I exist, I know that. Don't turn me away like everyone else does. I don't want to die. That look became sinister as the liquid nearly engulfed him and his left eye glowing red like that massive evil eye before. Or I'll hate you like I do everyone else. It was true though, Naruto really didn't care for his facade all that much, as it was nothing but an idiot. But it did prove to be useful as a buffer of sorts for all the hate he received on a daily basis from the entire village. No, he didn't hate his facade. He was envious that it could endure so much he at one point couldn't. he hated everything this village stood for. He thought it was because of his teachers that those thoughts disappeared. This facade, it represented a perceived new step in his life. It drew on the happiness he got from training with his old teachers. It was forgiveness for this village. That much he knew. But before he could say anything, he heard a crack and the floor underneath him shattered, forcing him to fall into more unrelenting darkness below. He gasped again as he woke up in a beaten-up training field that had 3 training posts that looked completely destroyed. There was blood everywhere and most of it looked like it came from the many blank-masked ninja that littered the ground. Widening his eyes, he remembered this scene. It was the scene he came upon to save his teacher Shursui from Danzo and his root ninja, where he lost his left eye. Hearing the crunching of grass made him turn his head to see his old training self with the eye gone, and a dead look in his other eye. It didn't say a word as the blood from the field slowly crawled towards it. He knew what this version of him represented. His strength. It was his drive to become stronger, and to protect not only himself, but those he deemed worthy. At the time, it was his teachers and the old Hokage. But that led to the question of which version of himself was he? Looking down at his clothes, he saw they were various furs stitched together. He was back to this. Survival. When he woke up, he thought he was his training self, but he had reverted back to his survival skills. When he knew that living in the village after being kicked out of the orphanage was not going to work, he took to living in the woods and surviving any way he could. I see now. The young boy stated as he eyed the other before him. I need all aspects of myself to survive in this world, or I run the risk of losing myself to the darkness that festers within me. That is nice that you finally figured it out, but sorry to say it is too late. The dark voice rang out in mock sadness. Your darkness is just too good to let it slip. It gave me life. I will destroy what has hurt you and then I will release that darkness within this world. I can't let that happen. A new voice rang as its owner materialized between the two boys. This was Shusui Uchiha, one of Naruto's teachers. The man had the typical black hair of the Uchiha clan, but it was rather shorter than Naruto's. He also wore Anbu armor, signifying his old position within the village. How can you interfere? The Naruto that was covered in the mass of dark liquid shouted in panic. You are dead. While that is true, that eye you have is still mine and I put a part of my soul within it to help my student should he need it. Shursui looked sadly between to the two Narutos, and he really needs it if he is fractured so much within his mind. I also can't let his darkness and my clan's curse control him. In time, he will face it on his own terms. With that, he calmly walked towards the writhing mass of darkness on the boy and smiled. You have finally accepted all aspects of yourself, even your own darkness. With time, it will fade and you will learn to be happy. He tapped the boy on the head and the darkness was expelled from everything, the boy and the surroundings. When Naruto's world came into focus, he was staring at his old teacher on equal level with him. The surroundings were now of Team 7's training ground. He himself wore a pure white shirt and blue jeans with sandals. Thank you, sensei. Shursui smiled at the blonde. That is what a teacher is there for. His visage became serious though. With this experience and the presence of a Sharingan in an Uzumaki body, I have felt a great change within the eye. You are treading on new territory, in all aspects of yourself, but I am sure you will figure it out later. Why? Naruto got out before Shursui pushed him and everything blanked out. Like your parents, I will always be there for you. Naruto lay in a hospital bed that was already within the room they had all been in. Inoichi just stared at the boy in wonder. After he had lost control for his projection jutsu, everything in that room had blown up in his face. Once he had been taken by the dark water that had permeated the blonde's mind, he felt trapped and that was not a feeling he usually felt within someone's mind. Especially considering he almost went insane himself from the myriad of angry voices of the village screaming at him. Thankfully he had been saved, but not by someone he would ever expect. The blonde's own father had put a part of his soul in the kid to eventually talk to him. It was genius, so Inoichi gave up some of his chakra to the man, so that he would have far more time than he intended. It was the least he could do. The girls were a different story. While they had been in the background of everything, they still were taken by that strange dark water. What saved them was not the fourth Hokage, but the very beast that laid waste the village so long ago, the Kyuubi. Although it almost seemed bored when it saved them, like it was barely worth the effort. Still the presence of the most powerful tailed beast inside Naruto brought up a lot of questions, and cleared up a lot as well. It also made the visions they saw within the darkness make sense. Naruto's life was not pleasant, and it showed of his character how strong he truly was to endure all of that. For Karin, she just learned about another aspect of her relative's life and wanted to be able to help make the rest of his life better. Oh sure, she was going to do that for herself, but Naruto really needed it too, so that was a plus. Looking to the other girls in the room, she smiled a devious smile. Kuratsuchi smiled sadly, but had a determined look in her eyes. Through all that darkness, she saw firsthand how people can be to a Jinchuriki. If that was truly what it was like, it would explain her grandfather's reluctance to make another one since Rashi was so old now. Yes, she would help those two in her own village lead better lives by changing the hearts of her villagers. Looking towards the blonde, she smirked. He had her respect now. She would be as strong as him no matter what it took. Maybe the future would be better for it. Ino felt different now. She always went along with the popular crowd and shunned Naruto like he was nothing. Her father at one point even tried to change her mind on that, but that was not how Ino operated. Now she regretted it. Looking to her fellow blonde on the bed, she nodded to herself. This kid was a hero, not the villain, an idiot she was led to believe. She would be there for him as a friend should be. Girls. Inoichi's stern voice broke them out of their inner thought as they turned to him. What you have learned today is an S-class secret. I am sure you know why this information can't get out unless he says it himself. The consequences could be dire if you do not heed my words. Meg, you don't have to worry about it. I respect him enough to keep his secret. Kuratsuchi replied. Besides, he is now my rival in being a Kage. He's family, so I am with him. Karin stated with a smile. I understand. Ino replied with a nod. Good. Inoichi said tiredly as he left the room. Now I just have to report this to the Hokage and I can go to bed. Now I know how Shukaku feels. Where am I now? Naruto asked as he walked along a river to a large waterfall. He was still in his mind, he knew that much. After Shursui talked to him, he thought he was going to wake up back in the room with the others. Walking up to the area around the waterfall that came from somewhere, he noticed something strange. He saw a red torii in front of a waterfall where the waters met. It was strange seeing a gate of sorts in his own mind. Plus, there was a sign hanging from it that said seal and it had the Uzumaki and Uchiha clan symbols on it. But there was another that he was not familiar with. It was old and faded. He thought he saw some sort of monkey. Odd, so we finally meet. A voice echoed loudly as the water bled red. I hear you. Naruto said as he looked around the water and the land around him. But I don't see you. With the change you have undergone in your mind, so has the seal. It seems that all Uzumaki have the potential to change a seal on them without even knowing it. The water under the gate rose up to form a man. He had long blood-red hair that fell around his face. The same whisker-like marks on his cheeks as Naruto, but he had a scruff of a beard covering it. Black where the whites of his eyes would be and glowing red irises. He wore a simple orange kimono that was partially open to show his chest. However, this is a decent change compared to the others. With that, he walked off the water to a nearby rock formation that looked like two thrones facing each other and lazily sat down in one of them, gesturing for the blonde to take the other. Naruto cautiously walked over and took his seat as well. You are not what I expected, Kyubi. The man merely shrugged. What? You were expecting a giant nine-tailed fox? Well, that and your calm demeanor. I kind of expected you wanting to kill me for obvious reasons, Kyubi smirked, which looked feral with his elongated fangs. Oh, don't get me wrong, human, I would love to do that. I do want my freedom after all. However, due to recent events, that is not possible right now. That and you interest me. It is not every day that one faces the darkness and accepts it the way you have. I kind of had help with that. Naruto replied with a shrug, and he also noticed that the river raged red a bit before calming. Yes, by an Uchiha no less. Do wonders never cease? The man said sarcastically. Clearly the Uchiha was a sore spot for the ancient being, but that does leave the question on where that leaves us. Naruto sighed. I don't like this situation either, but we are stuck with each other. So why not make the best of it? Let's work together. The Kyubi quirked an eyebrow at that. Just like that, Naruto just stared at the man in front of him. This had to be a challenge of sorts. He had to be truthful here. When I first heard that you were in me, I wanted to hate you. You were the cause of everything bad in my life, but the more I thought on that, that seemed wrong. You probably had your reasons for the attack, and you can tell me at your own pace. For now, let's just agree to get along and see where it goes from there. The man stared hard and long at the blonde before that feral smirk crossed his features. You are not like the others Jinchuriki that I have had, and in time I will tell you of them. Very well, I agree that we should work together. Well, at least until you die, then I'll be free to do what I wish. With that, the being before him started to evaporate, reminding Naruto of the water his form was created from, but left with the last word. I suggest looking more into the seals in your apartment. You never know how useful they can be. Then, the world blanked out again for the blonde. Naruto was currently skimming through a book of seals he had on his desk. There were a few seals he had been working on, but for the life of him, couldn't figure out what the Kyubi meant. These were the only seals he had. What are you doing? What the? Naruto jumped out of his seat only to see Karin staring at him like had gone crazy. The redhead just smirked at his reaction before peering at the seals he had been working. Huh, neat. Why are you going over these like you have missed something? You've been like this since yesterday. Don't you remember Ino is coming over to take you out to get a better look? You can't stay in animal skins and fur all the time. Naruto coughed in embarrassment as he recovered. Right, I forgot. It is just that Kyubi mentioned I should look at a seal in my apartment better. Only problem is, there are only these seals on my desk. I have no idea what he is talking about. What about the seal in that picture frame? Karin asked as she pointed to the one on the wall behind her. What are you talking about? Naruto asked as he walked over to it with his cousin. That is just an abstract picture that the old man said was from the previous owner of this place. Nope. Karin chirped. Good thing you have a true Uzumaki here, or otherwise you would have never figured that out. We are going to need to work on that. Oh haha, Naruto deadpanned to Karin's shit-eating grin. What does this one do? It looks like an overly complicated communication seal. Karin replied with a critical eye. Naruto stared at it for a few moments, wondering who he would be communicating with before he shrugged and decided to just find out. Putting his hand to the intricate designs, he channeled his chakra through it to reveal nothing. Naruto just turned to Karin with a deadpan look. Well, that was a bust. Karin didn't say anything though because the seal glowed brightly and a cracking noise was heard. Then the wall itself blew apart in bright light and Naruto was gone, with the only thing on that wall being there was the bright light. What overly complicated shit is this? Karin shouted in panic. In a dark room, machines could be heard humming and clanking in the background as an ancient man looked over a cliff to the lights below, a sad look in his eyes. For all the activity that operated around him, this city was empty. It was a sad and lonely existence, but someone had to be here. But even so, he felt his end was near. He just wished someone would come in his final moments. His prayers were answered. There was pull of an ancient seal that his family had always used. His eyes watered and a sad smile graced his features. It could have been anyone, but he knew this specific gateway. He would get to see her one last time. White light shot up not far away and out came a figure. Kushina? Is that really you? Who? Kushina, is that you? Naruto heard from an old voice as he fell out of the light. It was a rather strange experience for him. One moment, he was talking with Karin and the next, he was ripped into light that never seemed to end and when it did, he nearly lost his footing. Who? Naruto asked wearily as he regained bearings somewhat. Beyond the light were machines that did something. He wasn't sure yet because they were covered in darkness and other bits of light. Those other bits of light, they seemed to come from far away. Where the hell was he? The other presence in the area he was in paused for a moment before walking forward, revealing himself. He was an ancient man with an oversized robe covering him and a cane that looked to be keeping him on his feet. His pale facial features looked to be sunken in from years of age, no real light, and lack of any good food. His hair was all gray and matted down around his face, and his beard was too long. Who are you, boy? Only a direct member of my family can use that seal. The man stated matter-of-factly as he eyed the blonde boy. Not a hair color you usually see in an Uzumaki. Possible, but rare. Naruto felt obligated to answer this decrepit old man. He felt power coming from him, but also a strange familiarity. So, he just shrugged. I am Naruto Uzumaki. My cousin said this picture on my wall was the supposed seal a friend of mine told me to look at in my apartment. I had no idea what it really did. Suddenly, Naruto was hit on his head by the old man's cane. Idiot! What if the seal killed you? When the old man stopped, he smiled. Typical of the young, no regard for the old ways and no true fear of seals. Huh! What are you talking about? I have been alone until I met my cousin in the Chunin exams in Konoha. How could I have known about more seals? While a lie, his facade didn't much about seal. At that revelation, the older man closed his eyes and felt the chakra around Naruto, and within him. Tears crept down his face as he felt what he needed. There was another chakra in the boy other than his own. He felt his daughters, an Uchiha's, a Namikaze, and the Kyuubi massive force. So his granddaughter was dead and her son became the new Jinchuriki. But what circumstances in the world could have led her to put part of herself in her son? No matter, he still had a job to do. Then he could finally rest. Maybe even see his family. Well boy, you are looking at your great-grandfather. Only a member of my family can use that seal that you activated. It was originally supposed to signify that it was safe for us Uzumaki to be back in the world and open our home village up from the inside out. That was a long time ago. The old man sighed sadly. Oh man, sorry you have been waiting so long. Naruto replied sadly. Don't be child, you have given me hope that the Uzumaki still live. Maybe one day, you will return through the front door and make Uzaki Obikure known to the world again. Reaching in his robe, he pulled something out and gave it to Naruto. Here, to learn more about being an Uzumaki. As Naruto took the item, he somehow felt the light he had walked through bend around him and start pulling. He panicked a bit, but the old man just smiled. These are your first steps. Once the light fully engulfed Naruto and then disappeared, he smiled. For your journey will not be easy. Once you find our home, you will have to prove your worth. Good luck, kid, you will need it. With that, he closed his eyes and smiled, staying in that position forevermore. What the hell do you mean the wall of light just swallowed him up? Ino freaked out and Katsuchi just stared at the scene in front of her. Karin was trying to explain things to Ino, but the story was rather unbelievable. She herself heard the commotion only because she was next door. However, her grandfather always talked about the Uzumaki and their mysterious ways almost like he was in awe of them. The wall grew brighter for a moment, catching everyone's attention before the light shrank and spat out Naruto, who looked like he was in mid-conversation. The light faded until all that was left was the seal itself. Even then, the seal seemed to morph into that of a real picture of a blonde man holding a pregnant red-headed woman. Finally, the light collected in one spot underneath the picture and formed a simple scroll, which landed on the box Naruto had in his hands. Oh, thank goodness you are okay. Karin shouted as she grabbed the blonde from behind. Yeah, I am. Naruto said as he stared the picture, more specifically the woman. I think I just met my great-grandfather. Huh? Was the collective response of the room. Ye gave me this box, saying that I would be able to get to our homeland through the front door if I ever found it, and that I would know what it means to be a true Uzumaki. Naruto replied thoughtfully as he put the scroll on the floor and opened the box. That seemed to strike a chord within Karin for a moment. Then her eyes widened as she looked from the woman in the picture and then to Naruto. Holy shit, you are the last surviving member of the main family, and that means? Naruto asked as he took out a strange golden pendant with the crimson Uzumaki clan seal on it. Flipping it over, there was the same monkey symbol he saw back in his mind. It was more pronounced now with 2 rubies for eyes. However, he still had no idea what that meant. It means you are the prince of the Uzumaki. Katsuchi said with wide eyes, remembering her grandfather saying the main family was important for some reason. How so I am royalty to a dead or dying clan? Naruto replied, not that impressed as he put the pendant around his neck. A pulse rocked through him for a moment, and his blood boiled. It was beyond painful for a second, and then it faded as a warm sensation spread throughout him. It was odd. Before I met the guy, he asked if I was a person named Kushina. I guess that means this lady is my mom then, and the blonde guy is my father. Katsuchi studied the picture for a moment before her eye widened, a sad smile crossing her lips. Your dad was the Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze. Then she just started laughing at their gobsmacked expressions. Man, your dad was hated by most of the village for a while. But this is great. You're the son of Stone's boogeyman. Karin looked nervously between Naruto and Kurotsuki. This is not a bad thing because? Katsuchi wiped a tear from her eye as she finished laughing. Dad told me that the Yellow Flash was pretty respected at first during the war, but the man earned his title by winning one battle in a matter of seconds. Then he became feared and hated by the survivors. He made orphans out of the lot of us. A sad smile crept on her lips at that. We, the younger generation, really hated him for a long time, but one day, it dawned on one of us that this world made orphans, not just one man. Word spread and we all agreed we would try to make this world a better place starting with our village. Just like that? Naruto asked with wide eyes. Well, some people need to get over their pain, but we are trying, Katsuchi replied with a smirk. The way we view it, the Yellow Flash was just an avatar of death, sent to kill the living. She looked right at Naruto with a sad smile. People thought we were nuts, but didn't tell us to stop. Then, Gramps learned of a young boy that was orphaned during the Kyuubi attack and made its Jinchuriki. It was clear then, we are all just orphans in this world. She walked to Naruto and held out a hand. There would be no reason to actually hate you. I have seen what you have gone through and you have heard our story. You saved my ass in the forest of death when you could have left me to die. When Naruto took her hand, she pulled him in close until their faces were inches apart, giving him a challenging look. And to make things better, we are rivals to be a Kage. Naruto smiled at that. He didn't have the heart to tell her that he couldn't care less if he was a Kage or not, but this had turned into a strange friendship that he was okay with. Right. Well, that is nice and all, but I for one don't feel like calling him the barbarian Kage with all his furs and crap. Ino cut in, a little annoyed the two were so close. She herself didn't know why either, but this was a perfect time to say something. And no more of that orange crap either. I am not going to like this, am I? Naruto deadpanned even though he was not arguing the orange issue. Nope. Karin laughed evilly as she grabbed Naruto from behind and dragged him away alongside Ino. Katsuchi just had a bored look on her face as she followed. After shopping for new clothes, the group found themselves at Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto looked bored as he ate his third bowl, while Karin snickered next to him with her own bowl. Ino was oddly quiet with a glazed-over look in her eyes and Katsuchi just looked annoyed at the blonde girl. In her mind, Karin thought the entire trip to get Naruto new clothes was a total success. They got Naruto out of the smelly animal skins and into something much cooler. The reason for the others' reactions also was a success in her plan to get her cousin a date. It was devious. It was only a few times, but she managed to trick either Ino or Katsuchi into accidentally walking in on him when he changed. This got the desired reactions from the girls and the lone boy. Embarrassment and further attraction, at least for the girls anyway. She had figured out one simple thing. Naruto had never experienced any form of actual love and therefore, any bit of lust. They were foreign concepts to him. She was going to fix that of course, and when she convinced Ino to go get something she liked, Karin tricked Naruto into walking in on her. The hilarity of it was great, and it was something. It at least got the seed of interest into the blonde Uzumaki. This whole experience though, along with some from the forest, got both of them interested in Naruto, and he was none the wiser. It got the devious gears turning in Karin's twisted head. She could worry about her own love life later. Messing with Naruto's was too much fun. She had to admit though, Ino did have good taste when it came to clothes. So much better than the orange and animal skin clothes. It was good, but it felt like it was missing something. He had on a new pair of ninja sandals that were black, a pair of black jeans with red streaks going down the sides, a red shirt, and a black vest that was open and had a red Uzumaki symbol on the back. A pair of Romani sunglasses were set upon on his face. His headband now acted as a belt, and the cloth's color was changed to a red as well. That let his hair down a bit. Speaking of, hey Naruto, did Ino change your hair while we were out? Where was I? Karin asked. Now that you mention it, you are right. The tips of your hair are red. Kinda fiery looking. Kurituchi replied with a smirk. She liked it. No, we didn't, Ino said with wide eyes. Naruto frowned at that. He did feel weird ever since he put that necklace on. Taking it off, he felt no different, and the girls didn't mention that his hair changed again, so that was very odd. Putting it back on, he sighed. Thank you, but I have other things I need to check on with those scrolls. Will I see you all later to train? You bet your ass I will, I can't get behind. Kuratsuchi replied, her leg almost healed. I will take you up on that offer, I need to survive my battle. Ino replied with a shiver at who she had to fight. Count me in. Karin cheered. Good. Naruto replied as he walked back to his apartment. I might need your help with the jutsu I am trying to create. Opening the box again, he took out the scroll from the painting, a scroll addressed to the last Uzumaki, and oddly enough, a summoning scroll. Deciding to open the scroll from the painting first, he found that it was from his mother like he thought. It would seem she prepared this in case her own seal with the Kyuubi failed and all hell broke loose. Well, obviously something happened that day. He smiled when she told him she loved him and to make friends and possibly a girlfriend before going about his heritage of behind an Uzumaki, meaning he would have massive chakra reserves, superhuman healing, and a knack for sealing. However, that was not all. She mentioned that all Uzumaki had a secondary bloodline in them, and that mainline's was special. She didn't remember what it was, but if he could unlock that power, he could become something more. She also included in an extra seal that had her own book on seals that she worked on with his father, and a summoning scroll that she picked up along the way. That was all going to be interesting. Looking to the other scroll, he opened it and began reading. Successor, you may be one of the last Uzumaki left in existence. This world has not been kind to us, those who know of the sealing arts to a dangerous degree, but that is not all of what we are. We are an old clan like the Uchiha, Senju, Hyuga, and even the Otsutsuki. We are the watchers of the worlds. We have seen the old clans invade worlds and settle in their own ways. We had the power to oppose them, but we just watched, and I fear that was our undoing. Successor, you must find our home in the swirling tides. There the answers lay, but to get there and unleash our secrets, that is a test unto itself. Our family will always be the key. Find them and you will know what I mean. They were spread everywhere to all corners of the world in the attack. Find them. This is your duty as the next Uzumaki clan head, and beware of the one who betrayed us. The man with the X-sharp scar on his chin. Danzo Shimura. Naruto read the letter multiple times and sighed. He didn't even know when he would get the chance to even search. He was part of the village after all. Shaking his head, he got up while grabbing the last scroll that just had a small note on it. Successor's summoning clan? Well, this could be interesting. If he was going to be finding his family later on, he would first need to win the Chunin exams. One step at a time, as the saying went. Can you do it? Naruto looked around his room when he thought he heard something, but just shook his head and walked out. Time to train. Sasuke Uchiha was currently on his way home. The empty streets of the Uchiha compound always angered him, fueling his rage. It was a constant reminder to push himself to be as strong as he could. All in order to kill his brother, the man who killed off his entire family. But it also filled him with sadness. Seeing the empty streets like this, it brought it all home that he was truly alone in this world now. His father may have been a cold ass, but he was the pillar of strength he measured himself to be along with his brother. Then there was his kind mother who was always there for him when he was down or hurt. They had been the most important people in his life, and they were now gone. He felt that no one in this village really knew his pain. No one except his teammate, that is, because he was alone to begin with. So inward was he with his brooding inner thoughts, he didn't notice until it was too late that he was surrounded on all sides by A and BU with blank masks. Glaring at them all with his Sharingan active, he growled out, "What do you want? It is not what they want, young Uchiha, it is what I want." An elderly voice rang out from behind him. Sasuke eyed the man with suspicion. He at least felt the others, but not this man. "And what I want is to help you." "Oh, and why is that?" Sasuke asked. "It is simple really, I need a true apprentice. Something my own son was not capable of. I feel that you will want power like that, and trust me when I say that Orochimaru can only do a fraction of what I can do for you." If Sasuke wasn't on edge before, he was now. The whispers of the cursed seal always told him that the snake Sannin could help him. It tempted him so. He felt like he would go at some point. After all, he really did have nothing to tie him to this village. In truth, his own team wasn't much to him. While Naruto was a decent rival with his quick progress, but he couldn't keep that up forever. And Sakura, he really couldn't understand why she liked him and even became a ninja in the first place. He felt that if she didn't shape up and soon, she would die. "Yes, I know of the curse seal that was put upon you," Danzo stated once more. "I know of its power, for I was the one to give it to the snake to begin with." His knowledge of seals was barely anything and he twisted it to his own desires. "But I know the original purpose was for something far greater. Let me teach you and be part of Root." "Root? You are not a part of this village?" Sasuke asked, now intrigued. "I was once. I was even in line to be Hokage, but I was passed over in favor of that soft fool you have now. Danzo replied with an annoyed grunt. I can give you all that you need. The power to stand among the elite and the knowledge of why your brother was ordered to kill your family. A pit formed in the bottom of the Uchiha's stomach. What did you say? Danzo smiled sadly, an obvious ruse to get the young boy on his side. Yes, it is quite sad that your family had to die to keep the village growing and peaceful. After all, they were going to form a coup to take over the village and your brother was the Hokage's spy. The Hokage and his council feared your family so much they would stop at all costs to keep them out of power any way possible. But your brother begged for you to live. He was given that, but he was cast out like some common criminal for just following orders. No, Sasuke fell to his knees in horror, as feelings of betrayal and intense sadness gripped at his already hardened heart, shattering his perception of the world. His own village that praised him had been against him all this time. Yes, now Danzo had the boy. Now I ask you once more, Sasuke Uchiha, join me and soon we will take back this village by force or destroy it. The roots have always stayed in place, but sometimes one must shake the tree to get rid of the dead and decaying things. Start anew. Sasuke was hyperventilating, seething in rage. An intense feeling of hatred was gathering up in his heart, and a slight stinging was in his eyes that he chalked up to the tears running down his face. I accept. Let the fall happen to give way to the bloom of spring, he said as he raised his head to look at Danzo. Indeed. Danzo replied with a cruel smile when he saw that Sasuke's eyes had changed. Oh yes, this made this all the better. He gained a new ally from a lie, and a horrible one at that. After all, he used to be part of that council. Things were defiantly going in his favor, as they always did lately. A week had passed since Naruto had begun his training using a new method of shadow clones. It was fun, but the headache afterwards wasn't, so he was taking a day off to soak in the hot springs. Thinking about it, it was Kakashi who gave him the idea of that kind of training and said man was lazily soaking in the springs across from him. What was irritating was the fact that he still had that damnable mask on. So how's the training going? Kakashi asked with some interest. After all, he was his teacher. Not a very good one, he himself would admit that, but he was still concerned. After all, his student had undergone some changes that he was not used to. No longer was he just that annoying loudmouthed blonde that he didn't really want to deal with. He was something else now, and he was interested. That and Sasuke had disappeared, so he had to train someone, and the blonde knew that. My physical skills feel adequate again, and maybe by the end of this month they will be even better, Naruto replied with a shrug. The facade had tried to keep physically fit, and that helped greatly. My jutsu are getting better, especially my disruption touch. I am going to have to do more research with bioelectricity. Then I guess it would be a good time to start teaching you true lightning manipulation. You have a good grasp of wind manipulation, so that will be a plus, Kakashi replied with a nice smile. And who knows, maybe I'll get to pass on my signature jutsu to you. I didn't know you had become so generous, Kakashi. A new voice rang out as the male figure got into the hot spring with them. He was an older man that was far taller than them, and had very long shaggy white hair, and one would think that you would be peeping on the women next door instead of chatting with other men in a hot spring. Kakashi shot back. Master Jiraiya, are you mad? Jiraiya, the legendary sage, nearly shouted in panic. My student is over there. Do you know what thousands of paper cuts all over your body feels like? I would rather not know. Kakashi replied with a deadpan expression. Good, it is not a pleasant experience. It was the second time I almost died. Jiraiya retorted with a shiver. Recovering after a moment, he looked between Kakashi and Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Huh, so what I heard is true, you have a team. But I thought you'd be preparing the Uchiha for his battle with that sand boy. He is dangerous for normal genin after all. To be honest, I was going to, but I haven't been able to find him. So I am helping Naruto instead. Kakashi replied with a carefree shrug. I see. Jiraiya replied before a big smile enveloped his face. Then count me in. Now hold on. Naruto interrupted, a bit annoyed that someone he just met was butting into his training. Who are you? All I have pieced together is that you are a well-informed peeping Tom. I am so glad you asked. Jiraiya shouted as he jumped on top the spring, clinging to the water with just his chakra. He ignored Kakashi's offhand remark about hearing this again. Then, from out of the water, fog and toads seeped out as he began his dance. All across the land, women want me and all the men want me. I am the great and powerful Jiraiya the Gallant. One of the 3 legendary Sannin of Konoha, and the greatest author around. Naruto just had a flabbergasted look on his face before he grimaced when he looked at a starry-eyed Kakashi. Oh, of course he knew of this idiot now. The guy had the same name on Kakashi's little orange book he reads all the time. He was also pretty sure the Hokage had one of those too. Ugh, he replied as he face-palmed. Why are all the powerful people complete perverts or insane? I resent that. Jiraiya shouted at the boy. I am not just any old pervert or peeping Tom. I am a super pervert and the peeping Tom. My point exactly. Naruto droned with a dull look. Don't worry, Naruto, Kakashi stated. We will train you very well. Karin was laughing hysterically at her flame-haired cousin as they once again sat at the ramen stand. Oh, this is going to be good for you. She got out between laughs. How so? Naruto grumbled. Other than the training, of course. You are a bit stunted in some areas of being a normal person. I can go without being a pervert. Naruto deadpanned. Says the guy who made the sexy jutsu. A male voice cut in as he wrapped his arm around Naruto, as he sat down next to him. Oh, I forgot about that. Damn. The partial blonde said with wide eyes, trying to think up a reason to keep the jutsu. I am surprised you are talking to me, Kiba. At that point, Akamaru made himself known as the little dog barked from atop the boy's head. That's right. We will just get you back later on. Kiba did look a bit nervous though. Thanks for not actually hurting him too bad. Well, we are comrades and I have myself under control now. That statement is reassuring, Shino stated as he sat next to Karin, who raised an eyebrow at his curt reply. She was also trying to figure him out since his battle was rather short. Right, Hinata? Yes. Hinata replied as well as she took her seat next to Kiba. Karin then looked at the girl and saw she was how timid she was, and whenever she looked at her cousin, she would quickly avert her eyes with a blush. Another evil smirk appeared on her face. Yes, this would be very fun indeed. Hey, how do you know that redhead Naruto? Kiba asked with a perverted smirk. He thought she was pretty cute and thought maybe he could get with her one day. She is my cousin. Naruto replied calmly while Kiba stared at him with a slack jaw. You never told us you had a hot cousin. Kiba shouted in a shock while Karin blushed up a storm. Like Naruto, she was not used to that type of behavior being thrown at her. Given that she was never around before the Chunin exams, she must have come from far away and this information was news to him as well. It would be difficult to tell us, Kiba. Shino reasoned as he let a random ladybug land on his outstretched finger, and went quiet. That was enough for Karin to widen her eyes in recognition. Oh, I see now, you are an Aburame. That is cool how you can work with bugs. They must be so useful. Shino looked back at her for a moment in complete silence before he asked, I take it you like bugs as well? Some of them, yes. I got used to them when I was younger and didn't have very many friends. So I quietly watched them go about their daily business. The little guys are pretty smart when they need to be. That is true. Shino replied as he eyed her like she was strange. If you had the choice, would you work with them? Karin just shrugged. Sure. They would be useful. I think I would use praying mantises and butterflies. Shino was quiet for a moment as he eyed the girl and then at Kiba, who looked flabbergasted. His collar hid it well, but he smiled. Someone else liked his interest in bugs and thought they could help in battle. A kindred spirit. Plus, spending time with the girl would irritate his teammate. This would be fun. A sudden explosion sounded off in Team 7's training ground, making Naruto wince as memories of a good section of his shadow clones went with it. When the smoke cleared, Kakashi appeared looking a little worse for wear. Naruto, if you are trying to recreate the explosion style, then you are doing a pretty damn good job of it. While that is a good idea for the future, I am trying a highly volatile lightning jutsu, you know that. Naruto grumbled as this new technique was harder than it seemed. Maybe it would help if I teach you some more lightning jutsu, like my Chidori. The blonde gained a contemplative look at that. Understanding other forms of lightning would be useful as there are only one or two paths I can see with my bioelectricity. Jutsus. Boom! Another explosion rocked the area and the duo had to chuckle as they heard Jiraiya roaring at some of the clones that he had to contain the chakra and wind, not let it go all over the place like he was used to. I have a feeling that this is going to be a long month. The blonde sighed as he made more clones to replace the ones that blow up. It only feels like that because of your unique training style. Kakashi said over his shoulder, as he walked away with a group of clones. Naruto just grunted as he opened one of the summoning scrolls that he acquired. Since that it seemed that there were two major summons he could learn as an Uzumaki, he figured he'd learn at least one. Not that Jiraiya was happy about that for some reason. Still, he only saw at this scroll, making him wonder what the other one was. However, right now, he needed to focus on this one. Lions, huh? Wonder how they will feel about me killing one in that forest of death. Once again, Naruto dragged himself to Ichiraku's ramen stand and ordered a bowl of ramen. He knew that after training, Jiraiya would go off to peep on women at the hot springs while making sure that his other student wasn't there. And Kakashi just wandered off like he usually did, an odd skip in his step. It was odd, but he was used to eating alone, which was why he was surprised that Hinata of all people walked and sat right next to him, blushing heavily. Oh hey Hinata. Naruto replied, not really sure what to say to the shy girl that he barely interacted with. Hi, and Naruto. She stuttered out. You don't mind if I eat with you, do you? Not at all. But I thought you only ate ramen when you were here with Kiba and Shino. Naruto replied with a confused expression, while he searched his memories as to how many times he actually saw this girl at the ramen stand. Even last time, she was with her team, and she seemed different while eating. Ramen is a guilty pleasure of mine. She replied honestly with that shy smile of hers. You don't say. Naruto trailed off as he looked around the stand to see Ayam snickering off to the side. It was then he saw a particular promotion going with a ramen eating contest. Loser had to pay for all the ramen consumed. That made him smirk with a competitive edge to it. Well then, let's have a little contest then. See who likes to eat the most of it. For once, Hinata's eyes had a hard edge to them, but she merely smiled. Very well then. she said with a different tone in her voice and turned to Ayam. We would like to participate in the contest. Ayam smirked and nodded. Off to the side, Karin, Ino, and Katsuchi were peering around the corner at the scene in front of them. Karin was, of course, cackling at the cuteness in front of her, and was thinking of ways to add the girl in a harem she was making for her cousin. Ino and Katsuchi were eyeing the girl suspiciously for this own reasons and growling under their breath. This was the scene Kiba and Shino came onto, and shook their heads. But this was the day that they all learned who the Queen of Ramen was. With that, it was how the month went. Naruto would often find himself at the ramen stand after a long day of training, followed up with his friends joining in. Katsuchi would join in sometimes and find it funny that Karin had attracted two boys vying for her attention. It was the perfect payback she didn't have to dish out. Naruto calmly walked out onto the area with a smile at the roaring crowds that were here to see the battles of the Chunin exams. Naruto knew they were not here to see him at all, but by the end of it all, he knew they would all be cheering for him, or keep their usual ways and wish for his death. Walking up to one of the new friends he made early on during the month of training, Ino raised an eyebrow. Where did you get that vest? Said vest was no longer the same black one they had gotten for him. Now it was a gold-furred vest with that of a lion's head as the hood. Naruto merely tapped his nose. That is a secret. Naruto calmly walked out onto the area with a smile at the roaring crowds that were here to see the battles of the Chunin exams. Naruto knew they were not here to see him at all, but by the end of it all, he knew they would all be cheering for him, or they would keep to their usual way of thinking and wish for his death. Walking up to one of the new friends he made early on during the month of training, Ino raised an eyebrow. Where did you get that vest? Said vest was no longer the same black one they had gotten for him. Now it was a gold-furred vest with that of a lion's head as the hood. Naruto merely tapped his nose. That is a secret. Seriously? Ino deadpanned. Well, I could say the same for that paper rose in your hair. Nice addition, by the way. Naruto replied with a good-natured smile. Blushing a bit, Ino smiled. I got it from my teacher I told you a bit about. As they chatted between themselves, the new proctor of the exams looked at the other participants. Ginma had been chosen after Hyatt died under mysterious circumstances. Of course, they knew who it had been and were entirely prepared for what was about to happen. The Hokage just didn't want to stop the exams because of a threat. So here he was, proctoring these exams, and he wasn't all that thrilled about it. Turning his gaze from the two chatty blondes, he looked to see that the others were not talkative at all. Soon as puppet user, Kankuro, seemed annoyed in general with the two beside him, and he found that funny. It would seem that he was easily angered for some reason. Then he saw Neji and Shino standing there looking serious, and ready for anything. Good. He then looked to the only other blonde of the group, Temari, eyeing up Shikamaru as he stared at the clouds like he wanted to be up there. Poor guy. It was no secret that he had the motivation of his father, which meant none at all. So that was going to be an interesting fight, if there was one at all. Looking to the other silent contestant, Gaara, the kid had his arms crossed with barely concealed bloodlust. This kid was someone to look out for, and they had all been warned that he might play a big role in the incoming invasion. The only people missing were the Sound Ninja Dosu and Sasuke Uchiha. Both had seemingly disappeared off the face of the earth for the past month, and that was concerning given the events that were about to happen. Up in the Kage box, Sarutobi sat in his chair, ready to watch the finals. Next to him was his bodyguard, Nico. She was a purple-haired ANBU who was ready for anything. To their right, the veiled Kazakage sat with his guard, a male figure garbed in a black robe, a strange satchel to his side, and a large conical hat covering up his face. To their left sat the Tsuchikage, a small man in his later years of life, much like the Hokage. This man was known as Inoki, the fence-sitter. He was really only there to get his granddaughter, but the Hokage convinced him to stay with some very interesting information. He left his bodyguard at home, feeling his son was not needed. Noticing it was time, the Hokage smiled warmly. Getting up, he amplified his voice with chakra to be heard by the entire arena. Welcome one and all. It is time for the finals of the Chunin exams to commence. I hope you all enjoy. He sat back down as the crowds roared, knowing more than half of them were probably drunk. Up in the stands, Katsuchi and Karin were sitting with Naruto's classmates who hadn't passed the second round of the exams. Kiba smirked as he sat next to Karin. Oh, this is going to be good. That idiot better win or my loss would be really embarrassing. It wasn't that bad, Hinata stated, trying to reassure her teammate, her stutter getting a lot better after spending time with her blonde crush during the month. She wanted him to do his best as well as her cousin. However, she wanted Naruto win. Maybe that would change her cousin's outlook on life. After all, losing to someone you deem as weaker than you would do that. It kinda was. Snarked Sakura. Right. Genma replied as he turned back to the contestants. The first match is a three-way battle between Neji Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Naruto Uzumaki. The rest need to leave the area. Once the others had retired to the competitor's box, the three boys faced each other in a triangle formation with Genma in the center. Okay, the rules are simple. You fight until only one stands or I say so, but try not to kill each other please. At all three's nods, he raised his hand into the air. Then begin, he shouted as he disappeared in a smoke-filled body flicker. None of the boys made a move for a few moments until Naruto snapped his fingers like he forgot something. Oh crap, I am pretty sure I forgot my tanto I was learning to use. He looked all around him before he saw a seal on his hand. Oh wait, never mind. Activating the seal with minimal effort, a normal-looking tanto appeared in hand. This whole act seemed to cut all the tension in the air, making Neji scoff in annoyance. Pathetic, once the dead last of the academy, always a dead last in life. Fate has decreed that I win this farce of a battle. Turning to Shino, that being said, I feel that it would be prudent to team up and get rid of this trash quicker. Shino frowned underneath his high collar but nodded. While I do not agree with your logic, I agree with the team up. Naruto is far stronger than you give him credit for. Neji just scoffed at the notion before rushing into the blonde's personal space along with Shino before said blonde could react. Neji going for a palm strike to the chest while Shino sent a swarm of his beetles at Naruto's face. The result was the blonde Uzumaki phasing out of existence. I guess this was to be expected, Naruto said as he reappeared behind them, which made them turn around to face him. Your arrogance makes you think you are better than me because of clan status. But the prodigy of the Hyuga clan asking for help, that is funny. At least Shino is taking this seriously. As Neji scoffed once more, he quickly put up his guard as Naruto made his cross-hand seal with his sword pointing down. Soon enough, over 30 blondes surrounded the two clan heirs on all sides. TCH, even doing a little bit of research on you was easy. I don't even need my Byakugan to know this is your shadow clone technique, where you all look the same chakra-wise. Both boys jumped at the nearest Naruto, ready to take out the obvious clone when all that happened when they stuck their opponents was a small shock of static electricity as the Naruto in front of them disappeared and then reappear a few feet away with a smirk. Do you like it? A simple technique that I copied from a dead man. Naruto's voice rang out, coming from all over place. I see. Shino replied as he looked around him. He saw Neji try and strike a few more only to end up with the same shocking result. You have incorporated your own flair to sure sway the teleporter's technique. Neither Neji nor my bugs can catch up to you. Well, that is one way of putting it. Naruto replied cryptically. Enough of this farce. Byakugan. Neji shouted in annoyance that he was actually using his bloodline for this weakling. It was made even worse when what he saw was only one Naruto, who was just standing off to the side, waving at him mockingly. Ugh. It is that damn area genjutsu again. Kai. Shino had to admit that was clever. He thought he felt a spark of chakra when Naruto snapped his fingers. It would seem Naruto had put them in his special genjutsu at the start of the fight. Impressive, especially when he heard the crowd murmur in excitement. Well, that is not something you see every day, the Kazekage stated as he eyed the blonde with intrigue. He must have a massive amount of chakra to pull off an area genjutsu like that, especially if it could affect us up here. The Hokage just chuckled in pride at one of his ninja being that powerful. I agree it is impressive, but he will have to show more than that to be promoted. Indeed. The Kazekage replied evenly with a sly smirk under his veil. Oh sure, they merely get a shock for attacking something not there, while I nearly get mauled by 4 huge-ass animals. Kiba groaned as he threw his hands up in the air. Are you still complaining about that? Kuratsuchi asked with a smirk, while Sakura laughed. Of course. How was I supposed to prepare for that? Kiba asked. Don't worry, Kiba, your flames of youth still burn brightly, you will do better next time. Lee shouted in his usual exuberance as Guy helped him into his seat. Fair enough. Kiba grumbled but smiled as Hinata walked over to the boy and gave him some of her healing salve. You won't trick me again. Neji growled as he rushed up to the blonde with another palm strike at the ready, Shino not far behind him. When he was in striking distance, he took his chance, only to widen his eyes when Naruto's form seemed to vibrate for a second, and he missed. Shino came down with an axe kicked, and it happened again. Shino and Neji continued their taijutsu assault against the blonde for a few minutes, as he dodged every single strike sent his way with ease and sparks flying off his body by the end of it. Panting, Shino readied his stance again before jumping at the blonde as he seemed to need a cooldown, only for his hive to buzz in a warning. However, it was far too late to pull away and he paid the price for it as he was blasted back by ripping winds that sent deep cuts along his arm. Neji wasn't faring any better as he noticed when he got close in his strikes. He felt the stinging winds as well. His clothes looked a bit ripped up and he also had a few cuts along his arms. What is this? Do you like it? Naruto asked with a smirk. My perfected taijutsu style is a mix between my two elements. I use lightning to accelerate my bioelectricity to the point that I can move as quickly as I have been. Then I use wind with a seal on my person to create a very sharp defense. Neji stared at the blonde more closely. He indeed saw a faint shimmer around the blonde that showed a full body protection of wind and chakra. While that can be a problem, I also see that you need to cool down your body after a moment when you go that fast. You got it in one. Naruto replied with a smile before he rushed up to Shino with his enhanced speed. Sorry about this. Naruto glowed a moment, making Shino widen his eyes behind his glasses as the blonde's form shifted into pure electricity, exploding all around the bug user. Arg! The Aburame screamed in agony as the electricity surrounded him and then forced him to the ground, binding him to it. Neji growled in annoyance. They were being pushed back by a weakling all things. If he stayed in this battle any longer, I am sure he would have figured out how to beat me. Good thing I created a cage version of my disruption technique. He shouldn't interfere anymore. Just us now, Naruto said as he threw wind discs that he used on Kiba back in the preliminaries on the Hyuga. However, he was able to dodge them all thanks to his quick reflexes and his Byakugan. I will not lose to trash like you, Neji declared and smirked when Naruto zapped to him again with his new speed, and when he was an inch away, he unleashed his defense. Rotation. Naruto collided hard with the pure chakra attack and was blasted back. Neji didn't give a chance to recover as he got in Naruto's personal space again and begun his next assault as the blonde was in midair. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Naruto hit the ground a moment later with all his chakra points sealed up and barely able to move. Neji smirked as he looked down at the blonde from his nose. He looked a lot worse for wear because the blonde's wind defense had kicked in. Now do you see your fate? You were always meant to lose. He has walked away. He looked over to Genma and said, it is over, he won't be getting up. Out of the corner of his eye, Neji saw the cage binding Shino to the ground release, and he slowly started to rise. Scoffing, Neji strolled over to the bug user and kicked him in the stomach. You should stay down as well. Up in the stands, Hayashi Hyuga closed his eyes in shame. Yes, he was shocked and secretly happy that his nephew had learned to use such a high-level technique such as the rotation. But now he saw how truly hateful the boy had become. He had waited too long to tell the boy the truth of what happened that night. He needed to make things right soon. Well damn, now I am just embarrassed, Kiba said with his face in his palm. He did pretty well, but still lost to the crowd favorite. Hinata didn't know what to say. She wanted to be happy that her family had won, but in reality she wanted her crush to win. Don't count him out just yet. Karin cut with rage in her eyes. I agree, Rock Lee shouted as Guy rushed over to support the boy as he nearly fell on his face. Do not give up. Show your flames of youth. Not far away, Kakashi chuckled, catching their attention. Trust me, this is far from over. Heh, so he did block your chakra as the scarecrow predicted. Yeah, and it still hurt like hell. Naruto thought back to his inner companion. Then are you ready for the test run of the battle avatar? Oh yeah? Naruto thought with glee as he slowly started to get back up, much to the crowd's shock as they made it known. Neji heard this and looked back at Naruto, stunned. How? I shut off your chakra. How are you able to even move? I am just awesome like that, Naruto replied weakly as he panted in exertion. But the better question is, why are you so on this fate crap? Is it because of the curse seal your family uses? So you know of it. You must have done some research. Neji ground out. But yes, my place in this world is to merely be a slave to the main branch, and there is nothing I can do about it. Just as there is nothing you can do to ever be the Hokage. You do not have the destiny. You are wrong, Naruto said as he stood resolute against him. So you're a slave? So what? I am nothing but human sacrifice to this village, hated and feared by those who don't truly understand what I am. But I don't let it get in my way like you are doing to yourself. Change can happen in someone. Let me show you how while I win. The wind began strangely pick up around the flame-haired boy as he dug deep down for his chakra. Now, he yelled out in his mind as the Kyuubi forced open his chakra pathways with its own. The red chakra then flowed into the seal on his spine that held his razor wing protection. More and more wind picked up behind the flame-haired boy until it was a large swirling mess of a violent vortex that then took shape of a protective bipedal fox creature that leered at Neji with glee. Sealing art, Fujin's Tempest. Raising his hand to the sky, a chakra disc formed, spinning in place as the fox tempest raised its own paws around it, and added the element. With the deadly edge now in place, Naruto smirked. It is amazing what you can learn to do in a month's time with dozens of shadow clones helping you learn everything they do. It is really a useful jutsu that I am surprised no Kage has ever used it to help them with their mortal enemy. Paperwork, he said calmly, the wind picking up his voice and amplifying it so all could hear him. Up in the Kage box, all was dead silent until Sarutobi and Inoki's jaws hit the floor in horror. We have wasted our lives, they cried out in shame, making the Kazekage facepalm while their guards chuckled to themselves. Kakashi, my eternal rival, began Might Guy as he had a serious face for once, which caught many people's attention. Just how many clones can Naruto make? The silver-haired scarecrow just chuckled good-naturedly. You know, we really never tested that out, but I can say hundreds. Every ninja who knew of the true potential of the shadow clone jutsu paled. With this style of learning, he has caught up so to speak with the rest of his class in all areas of chakra manipulation. He managed to use them as a test to get himself in shape, and it has given him the ability to learn a great many things, some of my jutsu even. Hell, he has even created a few of his own. Kiba leaned further into his seat. Well shit. Are we really talking about Naruto? Sakura asked as she watched her blonde teammate in disbelief. Had he really surpassed her that quickly? Deep down, she knew he had already done that and gone far beyond her, and maybe even Sasuke as well. It was kind of unsettling, and Hinata just smiled. I guess it was only a matter of time. Hell yeah! Kick his ass! Came the excited shouts of Karin and Kuratsuchi. He's even got himself a fan club now. Kiba groaned in self-pity. Why couldn't he have hot girls cheering him on? The flame-haired Uzumaki closed his eyes for a moment. They shot open as he threw the disc like a frisbee. Wind-style, hurricane buzzsaw. If Neji was truthful with himself, he was a bit afraid. He felt the amount of chakra this attack held within its form and he reacted on instinct. Putting as much chakra as he could into his rotation defense as he could, he spun with all his might. As soon as the spinning disc of wind hit the rotating dome of chakra, everyone felt the force of the collision as the earth shook for a moment and cracked open. But what was worse was the horrible grinding noise that arose, making most cover their ears. Naruto smirked and directed 2 more at the spinning barrier, making the noise that much worse. But still, Neji focused with all his might to defend himself as the wind leashed its wrath all around his dome, shredding the ground. Soon, he felt it weaken. However, even then he wasn't truly clear. The pure discs of chakra and wind broke through and would have sliced into him if he hadn't dodged it by a hair's width. Falling to his knees, he watched as it spun along the ground, gashing it with the constant rotations until it hit the far-off wall and exploded. What was left were 4 large scars in the thick concrete. Oh hell! Neji panted in shock. His worldview was being shattered right in front of him, and he barely had any energy left to fight back. He didn't know it, but a lot of his long hair was gone now, but he would worry about that later. Party time. Naruto said calmly with a big smile as the wind fox seemed to laugh. A laugh that only Naruto could hear as it was the Kyuubi itself. The flame-haired boy made a running start at Neji only for the wind fox to jump over him and punch Neji high into the air. The form of the fox dissipated for a moment, as all the wind violently flowed upwards to the airborne Hyuga, suspending him there. Naruto followed through by using his new lightning-based reflexes to jump his way up to the ball of wind, while a ball of lightning formed in his hand. Crushing it, there was a loud crack as sparks flew into the sphere, adding to the elemental mixture. While inside the sphere of wind, Neji found it to be oddly quiet despite the whistling winds. He found it slightly peaceful until he remembered what caused this. Whipping his head around him as sparks were added to the mix, he grimly wondered what this was before Naruto appeared before him, far faster than before. He then knew a new world of pain as the blonde bypassed him with a punch to the gut, and then the wind itself pelted him from various points. This continued on for a few moments as Naruto zipped by to each of the sparks at great speeds, bludgeoning the young Hyuga around like a rag doll. Then it all stopped as the wind sphere broke and all was deathly silent. Neji managed to open up one good eye to see Naruto above him with giant wings made of wind, while the sparks that had once been all around him collected back into Naruto's palm, turning a pale white. Byakurai Hanma! The flame-haired boy slammed his palm into Neji's chest, forcing the boy back to the ground while also mildly electrocuting him. In reality, Naruto forced his bioelectricity to shut down temporarily for just a moment, making the fall down a short one for the Hyuga as he blacked out. Before he lost consciousness, Neji let out a small smile as he thought he saw birds freely flying across the sky. Naruto quickly glided down to the group after Neji hit the ground, kicking up a dust cloud. That was when he saw Shino sitting down on the field Indian style. Walking over to him, the silent boy held up a hand for the flame-haired boy to stop. I have no intention to fight you anymore. There would be no point after that show. Fair enough. Naruto replied with a shrug as he held out a hand for Shino to take, helping the silent boy up. That lightning-based attack hurt a lot though. Don't do it again, Shino replied calmly, but Naruto felt a little intimidated. Sometimes Shino could be really scary, especially with that ominous buzzing sound coming from his hive. Right. The Uzumaki replied with a nervous smile. Quite the show. Genma stated as he walked up to the boys and looked around the destroyed area, a nonchalant look on his face. Temporarily taking the senbon out of his mouth, he addressed the crowd. Naruto Uzumaki is the winner. Once Neji had hit the ground, the crowd had been dead silent, shell-shocked that the crowd favorite had lost in such a way. When the Uzumaki was announced the winner, they didn't know how to react. But his friends came to the rescue in the form of Katsuchi belting one out. Hell yeah, that was kick-ass! Then, one after another, the rest of his classmates cheered for the blonde until the whole stadium was in a joyous uproar for the blonde. In all honesty, Naruto didn't know how to react to this as he hasn't had much positive interaction with this village. Soon though, a rueful smile formed on its lips as he waved back to the crowd. What fakes? He heard as he made his way to the competitor's box with Shino in tow after they made sure the medics took Neji away to be healed, that is. You know, I am rather surprised that you didn't try anything else in our battle. Naruto thoughtfully said as they were almost to the box. I did. My bugs ate both of your chakras, but yours was too much even for them. Shino replied curtly as he opened to the door, only to quickly move out of the way as another blonde rushed past him to hug the other blonde. I knew you would win. Ino cheered happily. Naruto replied as he held her for a second. You doubted me? Not at all. I just didn't know you learned all that. Ino replied curiously. As the remaining competitors were chatting and getting ready for the next battle, the Hokage was chatting with his fellow Kage as well, with Inoki anyway. The Kazekage, whom he suspected to be Orochimaru from the beginning, was oddly quiet as he stared down at the arena. Humph, that brat is going to be faster than the current Raikage and his father combined. Inoki grumped. Indeed. Hokage replied with a hopeful grin before he actually processed what his old friend had said. So you know then? You have kept things from me, but I know this piece of info. Anoki replied, annoyed, but a smile crossed his features. But as they say, all is fair in love and war. Fair enough. I just hope we can remain friends. The Hokage replied. Of course. After all, the kid saved my granddaughter. Anoki laughed. Plus, we all know that the group of ninja that the fourth Hokage killed was a group that wanted to kill him and then me for control of the village. Did me a favor, just not their kids. You have got to be kidding me. The disguised Orochimaru thought in annoyance. These two, of all people, are friends. Ugh, no matter, this changes nothing. However, as Naruto left the stadium, he gained a cruel smile. I do want to see if Minato's spawn can even stand a chance against Suna's Jinchuriki. Oh yes, this will be fun. Making a subtle hand gesture, he signaled for Kabuto to wait until the right time to enact the plan. Genma looked around the arena for a moment. He was not sure the Sound Ninja was going to show up. He has heard some pretty disturbing things during the month wait for the finals. So, he guessed it was as good a time as any to find out if the rumors were true. Will Ino Yamanaka, Kankuro of the desert, and Dosu of Sound report the arena? You're up next, Kankuro said in annoyance. This was too soon to reveal his new techniques. He still had to deal with the invasion after. He was about to call it quits until Ino opened her mouth. Are you coming or not, makeup boy? Excuse me? The puppet replied angrily. You look nervous, Ino replied with a shit-eating grin as she stood next to Naruto. Are you afraid to get beat by a girl and one younger than you? After all, I heard you hate kids. Oh, I hate kids alright. Kankuro replied through gritted teeth before he walked past her, getting a groan from his sister. Screw it, he saw her pathetic fight in the preliminaries. This was going to be way too easy. He was going to show this little brat what he was made of. As soon as the two were down in the arena, Genma looked around momentarily for Dosu. Since he wasn't showing up, he shook his head and called the start of the battle before jumping away. The way Ino smirked did not sit well with him. He felt something was off. You really think you stand a chance against me? Kankuro asked incredulously. Your battle with the pink-paired brat was laughable at best. There'd be no way you could even beat my sister. Oh, I know I was pathetic. Ino groaned. That is why I went with this new training from a new teacher. She is pretty badass after all. She knew her father wanted to teach her a few things, but she skipped out on that. Her family techniques were something she could learn later. Besides, she knew he was curious about who had been teaching her. Just watch me. Touching a seal on her wrist, she produced a simple-looking bunny mask that only covered her eyes. With a smile, she put it on and bowed. Kankuro growled, thinking she was mocking him. He threw a couple kunai her way, hitting their mark with unsurprising ease. Kankuro watched with utter boredom as her body fell backwards lifelessly. As soon as her body hit the ground, it burst into paper bunnies that scattered. What? Was the general consensus that most asked when they saw this. Kankuro was more annoyed now more than ever. This girl had run on him, and wasn't really fighting. So much for her cocky attitude. Taking a step forward, his vision was suddenly gone as a piece of paper slapped him in the face. What the? He moved to remove the offending object, but a couple of unseen pieces of paper flew past him, and his arm fell limply to his side. In fact, his whole body fell to the ground in a heap. His skin started peeling off to reveal the puppet he controlled, and once again, the master was in the sack behind it. Oh, give me a break. Kankuro groaned as a few of the bandages fell from his face. How were you able to break my connection? A ninja never reveals her secrets. Ino said sweetly from all around before the ground underneath the puppet user burst into thousands of paper slips. They swallowed him whole before he could even move, and once they had stopped moving, he was in a giant ventus fly trap made of paper. One of the teeth was digging into him, and he did not want to see more of this. At this point, it was just ridiculous. Okay. I give up. Oh good, I knew that would work. You used the same trick on your opponent back in the preliminaries, so it was easy to figure you out, Ino stated as she snapped her fingers as the paper seemed to wither away harmlessly. Once Kankuro was on the ground again, she smirked. You are kinda useless without your toys, makeup boy. It's war paint. He shouted to her retreating form as Genma called the match in her favor. Just you wait, you'll be the first I poison. Chapter 5. Temari stared at the spot Kankuro used to be in anger. He wasn't even supposed to fight, but he did anyway because he was insulted. Such idiocy. Then he goes and loses. Idiot. As he walked back into the contestant box with a distressed look, she did have to admit that some of the women in Konoha knew how to fight, and she was fine with that. That was always a welcome challenge. Seeing that it was finally her turn to fight, she opened her giant fan and floated down to the arena in style. Looking back to the contestant box, she saw that her opponent hadn't moved from his spot at the guardrail. Just staring at her with an extremely bored look upon his face. She, of course, was pissed that he wasn't even taking this seriously, but she knew what his deal was. Doing her research on his clan, it would seem he was just like the other men in his clan. Lazy to the bone. Smirking, she knew of a way to get him down there in a heartbeat. What's the matter, Nara? Afraid to fight a girl, or is it just too troublesome for you? Temari goaded. Yes, Shikamaru replied with a sigh that was pretty loud now that the crowd was dead silent again. Well, which is it? Yes. Temari sneered at hearing that but smirked again. You know, I would rather fight your mom instead. At least the women of your clan have drive. It was at the point that a lot of people who knew any Nara gave a surprised shout. It was no surprise to them that to get a Nara to do anything, you go through their women. Do I need to get her to get any of this started? There was a silence before someone in the audience laughed. Yoshino, Shikamaru's mom, shouted, I like her. You better fight Shikamaru or else. At that, the rest of the audience gave off nervous chuckles. Shikamaru grumbled under his breath about troublesome women. While walking down the arena at his pace until he was face to face with her was a long one, but now he was just trying to annoy her. He himself was annoyed that she played that card. But no, he did not fancy fighting women. It was an uncomfortable experience for him. They were all troublesome. He did not like dealing with troublesome things. What a drag, Shikamaru muttered when he stopped in front of her with Genma off to the side, giving the boy a look that was a mix of pity and annoyance. Fine, let's get this over with. Alright then, let the battle between Shikamaru Nara versus Temari of the desert begin. Genma shouted and disappeared. Temari wasted no time starting the battle as she once again ripped open her fan and caused a strong gust of wind that blew the Nara clear across the arena. Luckily, there were a few trees that were planted in this arena, and they cushioned the blow. You think I was going to let you attack? The blonde laughed. I will keep you and that shadow away from me. I can work long distance anyway. Right, Shikamaru replied as he picked himself up off the ground. While it was a battle he didn't want to fight, he had prepared just a bit. Working with his dad on strategies, he proposed a few things that his old man smirked at. Transitioning a few hand signs, he quietly said, Ninja art, fluid clone. His shadow detached from himself before zooming off to the fan user who gave a surprised shout. It zipped right over to her and jumped off the ground in a full replica, but completely flat, of himself, who then struck out at the blonde with its arms. Temari brought down her fan on the arm, completely separating the shadow before it pulled back into itself and continued the assault, much to her shock. Well, that's new, Choji replied as he munched down on his chips, the crumbs flying everywhere in his excitement. Didn't know he has this up his sleeve. I admit, it is impressive, Kuratsuchi replied with a chuckle as she watched Sakura furiously rub the crumbs off her to no avail. Not far away, Asuma, Shikamaru's teacher, watched with a critical eye next to his secret girlfriend Kurinai. Completely using your shadow like that? Where was this before? It could have been so useful. He just seems lazy to me, but this display is interesting. The red-eyed woman stated. He is actually a genius in hiding, Asuma replied with a smirk. The test I gave him proving that, but to actually show a bit of motivation in his fighting style, I am surprised he took any initiative to do that. Looking down at the trees, he smirked. Oh, look at that, he is actually taking this seriously. That is his thinking pose. Opening his eyes, Shikamaru set his mouth in a fine line. He really hoped this worked as he had worked on expanding his chakra pool, but these techniques were draining. He hoped that was worth the troublesome tasks he had to endure. Touching a nearby shadow of a tree, he released another shadow jutsu. Ninja art, shadow pooling. All the shadows in the area pulled around his hand until it was black as night all around him. Then it shot off like a missile towards his own shadow. Temari was not prepared for this as she had to dive out of the way. She was tired as it showed on her face because endlessly fighting something that couldn't get hurt or die was crazy, and she was kind of regretting taunting the Nara. On the other side, it was a thrill of its own. The missile of shadow hit its mark though as it exploded on Shikamaru's own shadow. The two combined, created a dome of shadow for a moment, then two arms went straight for the wind user who flipped away in time. However, she had to dodge again as Shikamaru tried stabbing her in the back with a kunai. Nice try, she said as she blew him away, high into the air with her giant fan. She thought he was just going to let his shadow do all the work, but it was comforting that he was putting a little effort into the fight. However, her momentary smile shifted into a frown when Saw got a glimpse of Shikamaru's own smile. Looking back to the dome of shadow to see it stretch out an arm as if to catch him. That didn't sit well with her, but at this point, there was nothing she could do as the Nara landed. She widened her eyes when he connected with the shadow. It burst all around the area, covering her as well with the inky blackness. Ninja art, shadow imitation field. And just like that she couldn't control her body. Hell, she couldn't even feel it at this point. Just avoid. She watched with trepidation as Shikamaru slowly, methodically, walked over to her and put a kunai to her neck. We're done. I don't feel like fighting anymore, Shikamaru said as the field shrunk to allow Genma, who walked up with a bemused smile. I give up. The shadow around Temari disappeared with a pop as everyone took in what the Nara said. What? Shikamaru dug in his ear as he went deaf for a moment. Seeing Temari's look of disbelief, he elaborated. I don't have enough chakra to continue. My fluid clone and field jutsus were heavily chakra draining. I thought up dozens of ways to end this battle, but this one would get it over quicker. Didn't mean I had to win. Genma and Temari just continued to stare at the Nara with disbelief before Genma just shook his head. Typical Nara. Temari wins then. Temari continued to stare at Shikamaru like he was crazy as they made their way back to the competitor's box like he was a mystery. He could have easily won that, but she noticed that he was panting and heavily sweating from the use of such draining jutsus. Still, she thought he could have won that. Well, no surprise there. Shukaku, Shikamaru's father, replied with a bored tone. In reality, he was proud of his son for getting that much done and for diving more into their family's shadow style. That is true, I am glad he tried. Shikamaru's mom stated before an evil grin crossed her face. Now that he has shown promise, I am going to whip him into shape. Shukaku just eyed his wife with a bit of fear. Gaara didn't wait to be called down, he merely appeared down in the arena in a swirl of sand, ready to fight. His bloodlust was palpable, and it made Genma a bit nervous. Will Sasuke Uchiha please report to the arena? Genma commanded aloud, hoping to get this fight over with. Sure, this was an anticipated battle since it was with the last Uchiha, but he really couldn't care less. I'm right here. Sasuke's voice echoed as he appeared in a whirlwind of leaves. His look had changed and it was noticeable. He had black combat boots with steel on his toes, black jean pants that were ripped up a bit, a white muscle shirt, and on top of that, he wore a black sleeveless vest that was outlined in red and had a hood. On his hip was a pure white mask and he wore his headband like a belt. The most notable thing everyone saw though was the famous giant sword in his hands. Zabuza's executioner's blade. Damn kid, where did you get that? Genma said as he whistled at the blade. From a dead man. Sasuke simply stated as he stared down Gaara, who stared back, only with a gleeful smile that promised pain. Ominous. Genma groaned. Okay then, next fight between Sasuke Uchiha versus Gaara of the desert. Begin. He quickly disappeared as the crowd roared in delight. This was the battle everyone was waiting for. Sasuke wasted no time as he hurled a dozen shuriken at Gaara. Shadow shuriken jutsu. That dozen became hundreds, forming a black wall of death right at Gaara, who merely stood there with his arms crossed, unimpressed as his sand protected him from all. Darkness style. Shadow dive. Gaara watched with a raised eyebrow as his sand wall lowered. He saw Sasuke jump into the air before diving into his own shadow. Both soon disappeared. Now that put him on alert. He hated sneaky tactics, he would rather kill through overwhelming force. Sasuke soon reappeared as he jumped out of Gaara's own shadow, momentarily confusing both the boy and his sand. Sasuke smirked as he saw the sand jump to him to make him a Sasuke kebab. He retaliated with his own attack. His strongest fire attack. Fire style. Great fireball. He belched as much fire as he could, quickly turning the sand to glass, leaving Gaara defenseless. Sasuke brought down his giant blade upon Gaara's head as he crashed through the glass. He was almost to him when the ground shook and sand erupted all around Gaara like a geyser, knocking the Uchiha away like a fly. Did you really think it was going to be that easy? Gaara asked in his gravelly voice. Worth the try, Sasuke replied with a smirk. Damn it, that should have worked. I guess Danzo's tactic of training to me to just survive this battle was right, but I can still win this. The Uchiha frowned as he stood back up. As he did so, his Sharingan activated. No longer were they the red version they were famous for. Thanks to Danzo altering the curse seal to its original design that he made, his eyes now took on a yellow color, signifying his connection to nature chakra. Just a bit, but enough to be a threat to a Jinchuriki. But that was the only glimpse Gaara got as Sasuke put on his blank mask. Ninja art, bringer of darkness. And with that, Gaara's world went dark. While a little nervous, Gaara still remained stoic as ever, feeling a little bored as he stared into nothing. Do you really think darkness scares me, Uchiha? Like you, my heart is full of darkness. You can't hurt me with it. We'll see. Sasuke's voice rang out. Fire style, demon lanterns. Sasuke allowed Gaara to be able to see the terrifying specters of demons, but that was it. He watched hundreds of those fire beasts swarm Gaara, turning more and more of his sand defense into glass with their intense heat. Sasuke smiled darkly as he rushed Gaara with his blade when he saw that his sand had once again been all turned to glass. He was about to run Gaara through when he was suddenly forced to stop. Widening his eyes, he saw sand cling to his feet and ground. But the worst part was the tendril of sand coming from Gaara that was tightly wrapped around the Uchiha's sword arm. You may have blinded my eyes, Uchiha, but you can't hide things from my third eye. It was at that moment, Sasuke saw that one of Gaara's eyes was closed, and that a small eye was floating not far away. Well shit, Sasuke admitted that this was not a position he wanted to be in. With a gulp he asked, so does this mean I just lose or do I lose an arm? Yes. Which one? Yes. Gaara shouted in glee as he made the sand around Sasuke's arm bended in a way it was not meant to go, causing the boy to scream in agony and drop the heavy sword, which he was only able to wield the damn thing with one hand thanks to the small amount of nature chakra running through him. Mother wants your blood. Gaara compressed the sand, making mice meat out of the Uchiha's arm. Gaara's smile grew more malicious before he ripped the arm off completely, further strengthening the cries heard throughout the now dead quiet stadium. The malicious brutality scaring a lot of people. All the glass that Sasuke roasted shattered, once more turning to sand as it all rushed towards the two in an angry land tsunami. When the dust settled, Gaara stood alone with a confused look on his face. Where are you, Uchiha? That's enough, Gaara, you have won. Baki shouted as he ran up to the boy. Gaara paid him no mind until he saw Sasuke in the arms of Kakashi. Gaara, please just stop, you have won. Gaara growled in fury before a thought came to him. His next fight would be with the Uzumaki. Oh, he would get his fight sooner or later. He would kill the Uchiha and the strange taijutsu user later. After all, they denied his existence by surviving. That idiot child. What has he done to my next vessel? The disguised Orochimaru thought in panic and rage. At this point, his thoughts of the invasion was put on hold as all he wanted right now was for Gaara to suffer. This would be the only time that he would want the child of Namikaze to win. Lord Hokage, he said in an even voice that caught both Sarutobi and Inoki's attentions. Might I suggest a battle royal? Give my son the challenge he wants. That is a good idea. You must be mad at what happened then, my old student. This just gives us more time for us to stop you. The Hokage smiled as he rubbed his chin in thought. That does seem like a good idea. Get us out of these chairs quicker. Getting up to address the crowd again, he shouted. Ladies and gentlemen, this next battle will be our last for today. This last battle will be a battle royal style. I find it fitting that this consists of 2 Konoha shinobi and 2 Suna shinobi. Still, though, that mask that Sasuke had on his side, so it seems Danzo has gained another pawn in the game. Sarutobi thought as he sat back down as he watched a lone ninja with a blank face mask quickly retrieve the giant blade Sasuke used and disappear like he was never there. Old man must be going senile. Genma groaned to himself as he carefully stood his distance from Gaara. Guess this will get things done so much quicker. That last match was brutal. Watching as Naruto, Ino, and Temari took their places in a 4-man standoff, he sighed. This was going to be even more brutal. Well, begin, he said as he quickly moved the hell out of the way. He knew Gaara was going for blood in this fight with that crazed look in his eye. Temari and Ino, he wasn't sure how they would fare, but Naruto. Well, he heard the kid was pretty unpredictable and that might work out for him in the long run. Brother, how should we deal with them? Temari asked out of respect and a little fear. I don't care what you do, just stay out of my way and leave the Uzumaki to me. You think you can take her, Ino? Naruto asked as he eyed the 2 sand shinobi. While wind and paper don't always mix well, mine can, Ino said with a smile to her fellow blonde. Good luck then, Naruto said as he watched Ino and Temari jump off to the side. Ino and Temari's fight. I hope you put up more of a fight than weapons, girl, Temari stated as they landed a distance away from her brother's fight. Oh, I know I will, Ino replied sweetly as she put on her bunny mask. Good. Temari roared and swung her fan and a giant gust of wind blew at Ino, only for her to disappear with the wind, pieces of paper scattering to the wind. As some wind blew behind Temari, Ino appeared and threw kunai around her opponent's feet. One nicking her foot. It didn't hurt that much. Just felt like a paper cut. Wait, taking a closer look, Temari laughed. Seriously? Paper? What is that going to do against anybody, much less a wind user? A lot more than you think. Paper can be light as a feather. Ino laughed as she disappeared, being carried along with the wind until she was right in Temari's face. Or as strong as steel. She screamed as she created a staff made of rigid paper and slung it at the pigtailed blonde's head. Thankfully Temari folded up her fan and blocked, but she felt the force and widened her eyes. Temari actually smiled as she went blow for blow with Ino as they fought with a paper staff and her fan. This was a great battle for her, but she came here to win. So with her next swing, she opened her fan once more and pelted her opponent with razor-sharp wind from point-blank range. Wind style, wind blade justu. The next thing Ino knew, her form was completely shredded and blown away in the wind, pieces of her scattered around without a care. Temari narrowed her eyes in suspicion as those pieces turned into plain white paper and fell flat. First, someone who let their shadow do the fighting, and now someone fought with paper. Odd and a little unnerving considering she had an idea who taught her. However, before she could contemplate any further, her danger senses went off and she had to dodge a few waves of sand that came from her brother's fight. Right, she was starting to have fun, and she forgot where she was. Let's end this fight. Okay then. Ino replied brightly, but this fight goes in my favor. How do you figure? Temari asked, a bit on edge. Just look around. The pigtailed blonde looked around her skeptically for a moment, and she didn't see anything at first. Doing a double take, she noticed the ground around her looked fake. Oh no, it was made of paper. Oh, now that pissed her off. She knew that the Yamanaka was going to use this for that huge plant thing again that she used against her brother. A brother that lost to this. Oh hell no! Temari shouted and she swung her fan just as the paper started to form those plants again. With that swing, the wind blew everything off the ground, creating a veritable blizzard of white all around her, with a lot of those pieces of paper flying all around her, cutting into her, and obscuring her vision. She noticed that she was feeling a bit sluggish. Okay, that was not good. Despite that, she barely managed to move out of the way of Ino's downward strike as she came out of the paper. Temari spun around and connected the metal of her fan to Ino's head, effectively knocking her out. Temari smiled. These fights were great and defied the expectations she set when she did her research about her opponents. The shadow user threw his shadow instead of trying to connect the two of them with it like the Nara usually do. Then this Yamanaka skips out on her mind manipulation powers and uses paper, something that was completely unexpected of her. Plus the girl stole some knockout poison from her brother and used it on her. Too bad they were probably going to die in the invasion. Oh god. Her spinning vision made it worse. Temari fell flat on her face, completely knocked out as well, never noticing the sand take hold of them both. Naruto and Gaara's fight at the same time. When I kill you, someone like me, my existence will finally be realized. Gaara shouted in glee as the sand burst out of the gourd on his back and swirled violently. Oh? So you know, huh? Naruto replied in an almost bored tone. How could I not? Gaara smirked. When you regained your chakra, I felt the same evil that I feel when I use my own. Fair enough, but what makes you think you can win when it is obvious that you possess the weakest of the bunch? Gaara's wild smile deepened. Because I fight only for myself, that way I know my existence lives on. You of all people should know that and fight the same. Then Gaara sneered. But it seems I am wrong. Naruto looked up at the sky in contemplation, images of his old life, and the life he created through the old facade flashing before his eyes. Depending on when you asked that question, I might have agreed with you. Growing up, all I wanted was to be left alone and not deal with the disapproving looks that I was even alive, and I probably would have ended up like you. Gaara frowned at that as some of the audience that wasn't paying attention to Ino and Temari's battle leaned in to listen more intently. So if it weren't for the few people in the beginning that acknowledged my existence, and were there for me, I don't want to know what I would have become, for it is for them I fight on. An image of Haku appeared in the sky and he smiled. And from an enemy turned friend, I learned the true way to be strong. It is for when you fight for your precious people that is when you become truly strong in this world. At the end of his speech, his chakra blasted all around him as his wind protection took the form of a humanoid fox that stood protectively over him. Not only that, but two figures also stood by the sides of the fox, as if connected. One, a male with short hair and another a woman with very long hair. It was quiet for a moment as Gaara stared at him before that look of nothing turned into a full-blown maniacal grin as his own chakra spiked and the sand swirled protectively around his form, some of it taking on the form of the Shukaku, and something else only the sand shinobi could see and recognize as it was the form of a woman some of them knew. Well, Kankuro smiled sadly at his brother. He always knew, same as his sister, that their mother cared deeply for her youngest, which is why she took it upon herself to be the boy's protector, even in death. Their father was too full of hate to know this. Hopefully, this fight would be good for him. Sarutobi smiled sadly at the boys down in the arena. He had truly failed Naruto. All he wanted for him was to be seen like everyone else. Of course, hatred worked in dark ways and the village had been against him the moment he told the village who their true hero had been. Hopefully, Naruto would be seen as a hero soon. The village was going to need him more than ever soon. Maybe after seeing the wind take those shapes, they would finally see reason. Inoki saw the lone tear streak down his rival/friend's face but didn't comment. He knew that having a Jinchuriki in any capacity was heartbreaking. Rashi, his oldest friend, was a clear example of that. Then bring it on. Let's see which way is strongest. Gaara shouted as he sent a wave of sand at the blonde only for him to disappear to his right. Very well. Naruto replied as he took out his tanto that was real this time. Allow me to show you the true version of what my old sensei taught me, with my own additional flair of course. Images of the flame-haired youth appeared all around Gaara and it seemed that some form of electricity was in between all of them. Gaara once again threw a sand spike at one of the images only for it to simply pass through him as if he weren't there. This made the red-haired boy frown. The same, just like the green one. What he didn't see was that the spike of sand completely broke down in the electricity, some of it turning to glass. No, not like Lee's speed. Naruto replied from all around. While impressive, this is on a different level like Shursui's was, however. Mine is faster since I am using my bioelectricity-enhanced reflexes. Gaara stayed motionless with his arm crossed. This was something he had already seen once, and he felt that was a waste of time now. The other one's speed couldn't beat me. I double yours will be any different. He never noticed that one of the images was up in the air as well. Here, let me show you. Gaara spread his arms outwards, sending all his sand out in each of the image's directions, disrupting them. It was then that he noticed that some of his sand had streaks of glass in it like veins. Looking around, he didn't see Naruto impaled in his waves of sand like he thought he would be, but he did notice that he almost hit his sister. No matter, she dodged it, and if she hadn't then that was fine too. He didn't need to deal with weak people. Naruto smirked to himself when the sand user took the bait, and sent out his sand in all directions except from himself. Using the image he created up in the air, he descended down to the redhead and prepared to stab him. But that plan was botched the moment some of his sand armor shot off of him in a wide arc to protect him. The result was his tanto shattering on impact, the pieces flying off in slow motion to him. That was because he was still using his bioelectricity-enhanced speed. If he stopped, then he would have to rely on his own speed for a moment, which he couldn't afford to do. Thinking quickly on what to do in this situation, he acted on instinct alone as he chucked the hilt into the air, grabbed hold of the arc of sand, and swung himself around fast enough that his feet connected with Gaara's face, effectively knocking the boy away from him. Of course, his sand rushed over to catch him but that was beside the point. He managed to move Gaara almost as Lee had. That was when the enhanced speed stopped. He was no fool to continue with that type of speed. Look what happened to Lee after all. That and extended periods of that speed was tiring. Nodding to himself, he stood back up and caught the broken blade, and with a flourish, it had a new blade, one that came with the sound of 1,000 birds chirping all at once. You actually taught him the Chidori of all things? Guy shouted at his eternal rival. Do you know how dangerous that was? Yes, just as you knew how dangerous it was to teach Lee the 8 gates. Kakashi replied calmly. Naruto needed this jutsu to understand the lightning style. What I didn't predict is that he made new jutsu from it. Guy just frowned, but he understood. At least lightning style beat earth style. Or at the very least, Gaara's version of it. Still, if I taught Sasuke the jutsu, he would just use it against us. You saw the mask he was carrying, correct? Kakashi whispered, thinking it was both good and bad that he didn't teach Sasuke in the end. If Sasuke joined Danzo, then that showed his true colors. Yeah, I did. Guy replied just as quietly. Gaara sneered at the flame-haired boy when he got back up. Interesting, can you get past this? But that was all Gaara said as the sand came over his body and formed a giant sphere. This was his ultimate defense, something no one ever got through. Naruto felt a subtle weight on his shoulder as the cube's human form could be barely seen leaning against him as it flicked in and out of existence with the wind. A demon on your shoulder reference, as it were. He does know that your Chidori blade will just slice right through that, right? The beast said directly in his mind. Naruto chuckled, doubtful. But I want to test something before I rush in and try to cut that thing up. He took out a shuriken and threw it at the sphere, which jutted out a spike that completely shattered the ninja tool. Shukaku seems to have up his game. Was all the fox was going to say on the matter as the weight lifted. Sorry Gaara, this where it ends. Naruto muttered as he noticed an eye floating above the sphere and waved at it before pointing his blade right at the sphere. Extension. The blade seemed to stretch out and then shoot off right into the sphere where a painful scream rang out. Chidori surge. The screams became more pronounced in the enclosed sphere before the whole arena could hear them as the sphere exploded in a shower of lightning that danced along the ground, turning the sand it touched into glass. Gaara fell down in a heap, the remaining sand falling off his form as he clutched the cauterized wound he suffered. Glaring with murderous intent now more than ever, he screamed, "You will die, Uzumaki!" The sand shared that sentiment as it violently swirled around Gaara before all of it converged on the near redhead, transforming into his bloodthirsty mini Shukaku form. Gaara reared both sand fists back before he shot them right at the flame-haired boy, and no matter how much he dodged, the sand would follow, forming a giant web of unrelenting sand. Enough! Wind style. Razor sphere! Naruto shouted as the wind blasted all the sand into the walls of the arena, some of it heading right for the stands where all the people were. Thankfully a barrier jutsu was in place to prevent such an attack from hitting anyone in the stands, especially the nobles. It will never be enough, Uzumaki! Gaara laughed as drool fell down his chin. He then gestured to two sides of the arena. Not until you show me that your way is better. Naruto looked to see that Gaara had constructed two towers of sand that attached themselves to the walls. And in those towers were Ino and Temari, the sand slowly constricting the life out of them. Naruto showed no emotion other than confusion. You do realize that one of them is your sister, right? Yes. If she didn't want to get caught, then she should not have lost her match. Gaara shouted in glee. Seriously? Naruto grumbled. Fine, wind style. 10,000 fists in the air. 10,000 what argh. Gaara shouted as he was pelted from all sides by the very air itself rather harshly, and Gaara fell to his knees as his sand melted off his body again. Rasengan! Gaara looked up just in time to see a streak of lightning before he was sent screaming into the wall of the arena, and as he fell, he noticed feathers falling with him. However, he just smirked weakly as he felt the effects of a sleep-based genjutsu being used on him. When the redhead's body hit the ground, a pulse rocked the area and psychotic laughter soon joined. Now the real fight is about to begin. The Kyuubi said ominously. Chapter 6. Oh, this is so not good, Kankuro whispered to himself as he frantically chipped at the sand covering his sister, to no avail. Come on, wake up! He was blown away from his sister, as a violent rush of wind blew him away as a sandstorm was brewing with the arena. Despite a sandstorm raging, only the ninja were awake to see the chaos going on within. However, there was little they could do as sand and sound shinobi were attacking anything they could. Kakashi blew away a few of them as he released the genjutsu from the younger generation of shinobi around him. Ugh, who knocked me out? Katsuchi muttered before reality hit her hard. All around her, battles were going on, and of all things, a sandstorm was raging in front of her. Looking towards the Kage box as an explosion rocked it, she saw that Tsuchikage and Hokage locked in combat with Orochimaru and his bodyguard, the mad bomber Deidara. No, what the hell is going on? She shouted to Kakashi. A surprise attack from the Sand and Sound Village. Kakashi said, I know I don't have any authority over you, but will you please defend the area with Kiba? You got it, copycat. Katsuchi replied cheekily as she and Kiba took out a few enemy shinobi that came near. That nickname is annoying now. The scarecrow-like ninja muttered before turning to Karin. Karin, I know you are not yet a ninja of the leaf, but I need to you, Sakura, and Hinata to get the civilians to safe shelters. Sakura will show you the way. Do this, I will personally vouch for your entrance into the village ranks. Yes, sir. Karin saluted with stars in her eyes before running off to do what was told of her. Guy. We have to get to the Hokage. Kakashi shouted to his rival. Ha ha. I love it, and I bet I can take out more of the enemy than you on the way. Let our flames of youth burn right through them. Guy shouted back in glee as they made their way to the Kage box. Kakashi just groaned in annoyance. Shukaku laughed gleefully as Gaara's body rose up to the middle of the sandstorm before he was forcibly put into the fetal position and a sphere of sand once more surrounded him. The surrounding sand formed a faint image of the tailed beast's head as it chomped down on the comparatively small sphere. With the floating head now fully formed, it stared down at Naruto with glee. I am so going to enjoy beating you to death, boy, then I'll break out here and destroy everything. So much fun awaits. Like hell am I going to allow that? Naruto shouted. You don't have a choice, boy. The beast roared as a gust of wind knocked Naruto off balance, and a blast of sand soon after threw him up into the air like a ragdoll. Damn, you got any ideas, Fox? Naruto thought in panic. Well, the only way to stop this is to wake the brat up. Seems the idiot has a hold of the boy when he is asleep. I can give you a bit of my chakra, but you will have to do the rest in getting there. Good luck, kid. Better than nothing, I suppose. Naruto stated as he tried to right himself in the air, which was harder than it looked. Noticing another blast of sand coming his way again, only this time it looked more like a giant fist, Naruto reignited his blade and sliced it down the middle. Utilizing his enhanced speed with the Kyuubi's chakra, Naruto bounced off the glass created from his attack, looking like a red streak, and made his way to the face of sand, slicing the left portion of it down the eye in hopes of exposing Gaara. Nice try, kid. The beast laughed as another fist of sand slammed into Naruto from behind, knocking the wind out of him, then another from the left, and then from the right as it slammed him into the wall that had Ino's tower of sand still attached to it. Surprisingly, Kankuro was plastered to the wall right next to him. Any advice? Naruto as loud as he could with a few broken ribs, and oddly enough, he felt heavy as well. I have never seen this from him before. It seems like the demon is trying new things, but I will say that he usually holds Gaara in his forehead, Kankuro replied frantically as sand began to encase him as well. However, that wasn't scaring him. Please, I don't care if I die, just stop this madness so my sister doesn't die. I am trying, damn it. Naruto shouted as he painfully crouched on the wall, bones aching and feeling slightly heavier. I suppose I should have used this sooner, lion style. Iron protection, the golden lion hood he had shinnied as it took on a metallic look as well his own skin. It could be a lot more defensive, but he hadn't gotten that far yet with this summon clan. He was regretting it now. That and he still had to learn things from the ape clan. Don't tell me that is all you got, kid. This is just getting fun. Shukaku roared as the sandstorm raged on and formed huge chunks that spun around the area, some looking like they would be happy to impale him at a moment's notice. Not even close. Naruto replied with a deadly edge as his lone Sharingan activated and leaped forward on the blocks and spikes to reach the laughing head that was mocking him. Clones of himself appeared as well to try and confuse the beast. It's like they knew we were coming. A sound shinobi screamed as he was cut down with kunai. We did. Ibiki, the head of the TI department, replied as he cut down even more enemy shinobi that crossed his path in this part of the village, his command of this section of the village absolute in its defense. Then Anko rushed by, riding a giant snake like a horse, cheering in glee as the snake rode through enemies, sometimes flipping someone in the air to make a meal out of them for the snake before turning to the next poor unfortunate soul that got in her way. Or he hoped so, anyway, as he watched the scene with a sweat drop. Fear me, for I am here. Jiraiya the gallant. The man shouted from atop Gamabunta as the giant toad easily cut down in equally as a big three-headed snake that other shinobi were having issues with. Despite this, the enemies still foolishly thought they could take him, only to be batted away like the flies they were. A large shadow covered a battalion of enemy shinobi that was running further in the village, and that was all the warning they got before they were cut down in a shower of incredibly sharp pieces of paper. The grateful Konoha shinobi looked and praised the beautiful blue-haired woman as she flew around on paper wings. This was one of Jiraiya's children and students, Konan, the angel of Konoha. Another of his children was in the middle of the village, tearing through shinobi that dared attack the civilians with a decidedly large blade that he easily used with one hand, his yellow eyes showing his mastery of the sage arts. This orange-haired man was Yahiko, the steam toad sage. All around the village, powerful shinobi easily kept the enemy at bay. Sarutobi had complete faith in his ninja and it enraged Orochimaru to no end. He wanted this inane village wiped off the face of the earth. It seemed he couldn't have that as his forces were no match. But there was one thing he would have today, and that is the Hokage's head in his hand. He gained a sinister smile as he managed to stab the old man through the chest with his legendary Kusanagi blade, but that soon turned into a sneer as the man just melted into mud. Of course it wouldn't be that easy. Looking around for the man, he silently observed Guy and Kakashi being given an extremely difficult time by the resurrected first and second Hokages. Inoki was completely dominating Deidara and would soon be gone from this world, so that meant he needed to hurry up and kill his teacher before he was joined by another Kage. Spotting the Hokage, Orochimaru cackled and leapt back into action. Red streaks zipped all across the sandstorm's moving platforms in earnest to strike from all directions. Shukaku seemed to anticipate this, however, forming rapidly spinning pillars to prevent such an attack. Each clone tried their best to cut down all obstacles, but with each passing moment, this task was becoming that much more difficult. The reason being that this was not normal sand anymore. It had a sparkling quality to it that proved to be made of refined minerals in the earth. This chaotic sandstorm was the perfect obstacle of offense and defense. It was something that the beast had wanted to use for a long time, for it may act like a psychotic killer with no brain to speak of, but that was just an act. Like a lot of things in this deceptive world of ninja, time to end this. Naruto thought as the original made his way to the top of the sandstorm and saw the opening he was looking for. The pillars only guarded the sides of the beast's head, not the top. Chidori circuit burst. Naruto shouted with his broken sword pointed down to the head of the beast. Large red bolts of screaming lightning shot forth covering the area. Shukaku screamed in shock and agony as the storm around them stilled as large chunks of glass crashed to the ground. As the pillars fell, all was quiet. That was until the still airborne Naruto shouted in shock as the sand around him trapped him in a giant fist. Gotcha! Shukaku roared in glee as the fist rocketed upwards in delight, breaking through the ceiling of the barrier like shattered glass. The fist then grew in size as an arm was attached to it. And then a torso. And then legs. Soon, the one-tailed beast was finally formed as the sandstorm fizzled out of existence. You thought you had the upper hand? Am I a joke to you? I am all the sand, boy. Shukaku screamed out in glee as he formed the shape of a finger gun and blasted the captured ninja on the floor of the arena, creating a large crater in the ground. He then brought the giant fist down on the boy in a loud earth-shattering crash that deepened the crater, and all went silent in the area except for the hysterical laughter of the mad-tailed beast. No! Please get back up! Katsuchi fearfully whispered to her friend as all the shinobi stopped their fights in the arena stands. Of course, all the shinobi that were left were just leaf shinobi and one stone. Still, the shock of such a sight rattling everyone. Come on! Get back up, dumbass! Kiba yelled frantically, you beat me! You can beat this guy too! Soon, all the leaf shinobi were shouting at Naruto to get back up and fight. Everything hurt. It hurt so much. Naruto was barely conscious at this point, and his iron defense had run out when the force of that fist slammed into him. The coarse sand that hit him multiple times had caused his skin to be shredded and made him lose a lot of blood. Not to mention that it felt like a lot of bones were broken. Maybe that heaviness from earlier was the beast's ways of trapping him. Oh well, he had other things to deal with at the moment, like staying awake, with his willpower doing that for him. He knew that if he blacked out now, that was going to be it for him. He was going to die. But what could he do now against this Goliath before him? Trying to open his eyes more, he figured he could only see out of only one eye. He noticed he was staring at the ground where a lone piece of shattered metal lay. All he could hear was a ringing in his ears and everything that wasn't near him looked fuzzy. Are you really going lay there and die? I thought you were different, kid. Is my interest in you misplaced? The Kyuubi's voice rang through his head in disappointment. With a jolt, the world came back in all of its clarity with Shukaku grinning down at him. Time for a double tap, he shouted before sucking in as much air as he could as his fist got ready to hit his own stomach. No, I am not going to lose here. Not like this. Naruto replied in cold fury as he got to his knees painfully, noticing that his left arm was broken in a few places as it hung there uselessly as blood flowed down it freely. I am going to have to use one of them. Almost agonizingly slow for him, he reached out for the shard of metal and tucked it in his fist. Then get up and fight. The old fox rode along with everyone else. Despite this, he knew that the flame-haired boy was spent and he couldn't give any more of his own chakra at this point as the boy's body would just give out from the pain. That was when the fox noticed something strange in the mindscape. The running water of the waterfall was raging, and he saw a large chain being dragged along with it, and it was moving. The ground started to shake, and it seemed like the hill the waterfall was growing. Then the water took on a golden glow. Oh, he is defiantly interesting. Naruto charged up as much of his chakra that was possible into his fist, more specifically the lone piece of metal in it. In his anger and desperation to win this battle, he never noticed his chakra turning a golden color as it burst all around him, while his hair took on a crimson glow. His normal eye went complete white while his Sharingan eye finally opened and shifted once more into its golden atom state. Wind style, drilling air bullet. The one-tail shouted as he pounded his stomach to expel the air. Lightning style, railgun. Naruto shouted at the top of his lungs as he flicked his thumb upward, sending off a ringing shockwave-inducing bolt of golden lightning. While normally wind beats lightning in a fight, however, Naruto's attack was so overcharged with the mysterious golden energy that as the lightning hit the giant bullet of air, it pushed past it in a sonic boom that sent the force of the air to the sides, pushing those seated further in and those standing into the walls that cracked under the pressure. As the golden streak continued its upwards ascent, it blasted through the one-tail's head, completely exploding it, leaving Gaara in midair. Despite hearing what he thought was more shattered glass, he saw the opening needed, once again charging his body with his enhanced bioelectricity. This time taking on a golden color as well. He shot up the Shukaku's sand body in a spiral motion so the beast wouldn't catch him. Jumping off the reforming neck, Naruto's right fist connected with Gaara's face, forcing him awake. Bump bump. Whatever he was going to say next died in his throat as both boys felt a pulse rock through them. They heard Shukaku scream in confusion until only Naruto heard it in his head as a brown electron-like dot formed on one of the golden rings in his atom-like eye. As the body of the Shukaku broke down and fell to the ground, some of it swept upwards and caught the falling boys and gently carried them to the ground safely. The sand on the walls released their prisoners and slowly slid down to the ground. Despite this, Gaara laid on the ground and looked at the standing golden and crimson boy in awe and a lot of fear. Weakly, he tried to crawl backward. No, I will not disappear. I will not cease to exist. I won't. Get away. Unfocused eyes stared down at Gaara as the golden aura faded away to nothing. We shouldn't be doing this, you and I, Naruto spoke out quietly. But it was just enough for the redhead to hear. We've both been there in that dark and lonely place and chose different paths, but we are not alone. Not anymore, and that is what makes us stronger. Temari and Kankuro jumped in front of Naruto and stood protectively over their little brother, shocking Gaara that they still cared enough to protect him despite all that he did to them. We won't let you hurt him anymore, the blonde girl growled defensively, making his eyes widen and then look to the sky. He had a lot of thinking to do. That's enough, Gaara replied tiredly. It's over, Gaara. Wow, he is that spent. Kankuro thought as he grabbed hold of his little brother and took his shoulder over his, Temari doing the same. They turned to leave but didn't get far as leave shinobi surrounded them. They knew when to give up at this point, but Gaara had one thing to say. Temari, Kankuro, I am sorry. Kankuro just smiled sadly at his brother. Don't worry about it. He almost panicked though as he watched Gaara's eye droop before completely closing. However, nothing happened with the Shukaku again like it usually did when the boy fell asleep. Just what happened there? As the Sand siblings were taken away, Ino made her way to Naruto, rubbing her head where Temari had whacked her a good one. There was a bump forming already. She smiled at her fellow blonde tiredly and said, You did it, you won. Naruto blinked slowly as it took a second for him to process that in his nearly unconscious state. A smile crept on his face and his eyes fully closed. That's nice, because I put the rest of what I had left into that attack and I am just glad it didn't explode in my face like it usually did. After he said his piece, his body crumbled, only for Ino to catch him and lower him safely to the ground. She smiled at him with a look in her eyes as she ran her hand through his hair. Rest up, you did great, she said as an extremely tired Kakashi jumped down to meet them. Now it is my turn to get stronger. I want to be able to fight at your side. Naruto woke up to a strange scene in front of him as he was once again sitting in the stone throne of his mindscape. The gated waterfall still raged on as it usually did, but he noticed that further down the line, it passed through a large desert of all things. Looking across from him, the Kyuubi sat as well in his roguish human form, but now there was another throne, one that had sand swirling around it before forming another man as well. This time he was a tan bald man in Japanese priest clothes. He opened his eyes to reveal that the sclera of his eyes were black, with yellow irises and pupils that each took the shape of a black four-pointed star with 4 black dots around it. Kyuubi spoke first while leaning on his fist in a bored manner. So the mad Sand Tanuki is with us now. This should be fun, came his sarcastic reply. A tick mark of anger rose on the bald man's forehead and raised a fist to the red-haired man. You should be happy to have me. Wait, you're Shukaku? Naruto asked with wide eyes. This just didn't make sense. Yup. The one-tailed chirked before an annoyed look crept on his face. However, your seal prevents me from taking over in your sleep, which is kinda boring. I don't see that as a problem, Naruto replied with a shrug as the 9 tails chuckled at his brother's misfortune. But that still doesn't explain why you are here. I have a theory on that, and it has to do with that damnable Sharingan you have. The fox had just a passing theory on what was going on with his container's eye, which is why he was willing to tell the boy. Now, the golden aura and the chain in the water he had seen before was something the great beast knew all too well, and he would enjoy watching Naruto figure that one out as, when he mastered that power, he would have the strongest jailer ever. Oh, what is that? A mutation. The Kyuubi began. The Sharingan's past is a dark one and I know the stages, but it seems to have taken a different one with your blood mixed in. Usually that would result in an eye called the Rinnegan. Shukaku's attention perked up at that as he listened more intently, but yours is far different. Here, look. Water bubbled up from the nearby stream as it rose up and traveled to the area between the 3. Slowly it took the form of Naruto's usual blue eye to show what the beast was talking about. Then it bled into that of the 3 Tomoe eye of the Sharingan. Those 3 Tomoe then begun spinning in a circle rapidly and formed a ring as the red of the eye went black while the ring went gold and split into 3, almost making it look like 6 rings. Finally, 2 dots formed on a couple of the arcs. One brown and the other a crimson red. It is quite different, don't you think, brother? Oh yeah, but what does it do? The red-haired man shrugged. I mostly have no clue, but what I do know is that brown dot didn't show until you did, giving me the notion that it can completely absorb great sources of energy like us in an instant but at the cost of extreme exhaustion to the user. In Naruto's case though, he was already at that point from fighting you and your old container, so this put him in a near-death-like state, forcing me to keep him alive, so I am going to have to figure out what the other powers are on my own, Naruto said before his eyes widened comically. Wait, near death? How long have I been out? Oh, about a week or 2. Oh, that bad, huh? Hey, I tried my best to keep you alive but it proved that it was both a good and bad thing, Kyuubi explained. Luckily, it would seem a lady named Tsunade has stepped in and stabilized you. Tsunade, huh? He hadn't seen her in a while. She was the head doctor at the hospital. That was another thing, they had interacted a lot when he was a kid in his training with his teachers. After he was sealed, he didn't see much of her other than he knew she was on a gambling vacation. It seemed she was back. Good, he liked her, frowning at not knowing how long he was going to be in his own mind, nor what to even call this new form of his eye. He decided to shrug it off and ask the question that had been plaguing at his mind while a table formed between the three of them from the earth. Not to mention he was going to have to befriend another beast within. So I get that Shukaku is the one-tailed beast's name. Do you have a name as well, Kyubi? The red-haired man stared at Naruto for a long time in contemplation. He was still unsure if Naruto would continue to interest him, but the boy did want to work with him instead of sealing him away further to keep him quiet. He closed his eyes for a moment before glaring at the boy. If I tell you my name, you will have to continue to interest me while I put my trust you. A name is not just something you give out willy-nilly. That is a human thing along with Shukaku's. I promise I will not betray that trust, you have my word, Naruto replied seriously, the tension high in the air while Shukaku stayed silent. The ancient beast contemplated Naruto's words for a moment. This was one thing the blonde, sealed or no, always did, and usually his word meant law. A cocky smirk crossed his features and said, you will learn in time that our names have a certain power in this world, but you may call me Kurama. Naruto had no idea what Kurama meant about names, but he was honored that the great beast decided to grace him with his name. Thank you? Now wanna play Go Fish? Both men stared at the flame-haired boy for a moment. No sense of logic reached them until they figured that Naruto was going to be like this for a while and shrugged. They really had nothing better to do. As they played multiple games, Kurama saw the question in Shukaku's eyes that he was questioning as well. Was this the boy that their father had told them that was going to eventually unite them all? Only time would tell. A full month had passed and Naruto had finally graced the world with his consciousness. The first thing that came to him was the annoying sterile smell and the near-silent buzz of the lights of the hospital. He figured he ended up here, but this place was just so boring. The next thing that came to him was the weight on his right arm and a strange wetness that came with it. Carefully opening his eyes to adjust to the bright light, he saw a shock of messy red hair. Karin looked to be sleeping on his arm and was heavily drooling on him. It is a rather cute sight to see when family is seen like this, no? Came a familiar voice to his left. The Hokage smiled at Naruto as he moved to see him and smiled. I want to thank you, Naruto. Corking an eyebrow at the elder man, Naruto asked with a raspy voice, how do you mean? You saved my life, my boy, Sarutobi explained. If not for that last-ditch attack you pulled off, then I would have resorted to an attack against Orochimaru and his summons that would have ended my life. That golden streak shattered his barrier and passed through his head before any of us had any idea of what happened. We won, destroying him and his bodyguard with Inoki's special jutsu. Konoha survived the invasion with little to no causalities. At least the damn thing worked. Usually the railgun would just explode in my face. Sarutobi widened his eyes at that before he roared in joyous laughter, waking up Karin. Come to my office later on, Chunin Naruto. There are many things we must discuss about the future. I'll let Karin fill you in on a few things, he replied before his form poofed out of existence. Just a shadow clone then, huh? I am so glad you are okay. Karin shouted with tears in her eyes as she hugged him. Thank you, but I am fine now. Naruto replied, hugging his cousin back. Why does my body feel normal? Because Tsunade and I kept your body from degrading in that bed. Kurama explained. Huh, neat. Thanks, Kurama. The blonde replied happily because he also felt something else. He felt stronger somehow odd. How long was I out, and what happened in the meantime? Well, you were out for a whole month, and while you were knocked out, each of us has been keeping watch over you since we were worried, Karin replied before a perverted grin crossed her face. Got your own little harem going on. You know I don't want that, right? Naruto asked with a monotonous voice, having been used to his cousin's antics. Spoil sport. Karin pouted. Anyway, while you were out, the Tsukiji and Kuratsuchi left for their village with Kuratsuchi giving me a message to tell you to not slack off in your training. At this, the male Uzumaki snorted, not really surprised by his unofficial rival. Ino and Hinata came over a lot like I said, and Shino has been helping me with my training since I am a ninja of the leaf now. Congrats. Naruto replied with a warm smile. Yeah, Kakashi helped me to be one. Grass doesn't seem to miss me anyway, they think I died with the rest of my team in the forest. Their loss. Naruto stated, so who else got promoted? You got promoted to Chunin as a field promotion because the Hokage deemed that you fighting another Jinchuriki, and winning with no Jinchuriki training was enough for him. That and Shikamaru got promoted to Chunin and I have heard nothing but complaining from that guy. Can't say I am surprised, he barely wants to be a ninja. Naruto laughed out. Guy, get back in bed before I fucking ban you from using the gates again. It is bad enough you taught your student that, and I had to heal him too. A sudden scream interrupted them as a busty young-looking blonde then walked into their room with an annoyed expression of her face. That quickly changed into a soft smile as she saw that Naruto was awake. Hey brat, long time no see. How are you feeling? Surprisingly, I feel better than ever, Naruto replied with a confused expression at that. Still, it was nice seeing Tsunade again. Once he was sealed, she kept her distance from him. But that didn't make much sense to him. He felt that he was still missing something. How are the kids? Tsunade rolled her eyes at that. Yep, her Naruto was back. It was a little-known secret that Jiraiya had adopted 3 kids he trained in rain and that she did her best to help. Mostly to keep the old perv from corrupting them. Still, they were seen as an unofficial family. They are fine and miss you a lot. However, Conan has taken great interest in your friend Ino. Heh, I figured that when I saw the paper rose in her hair. Naruto replied. They chatted for a while after that. It wouldn't be until the next day that he was released. Crash. Yep, he felt stronger and he was faster as well. He found that part out the hard way as he ran into the wall of the Hokage's office. For a moment, nothing happened until he was held at sword point by a couple of A and B guards. However, the old Sarutobi just laughed and told them to leave. After they were gone, he felt a change in the room, seals activating, which made him feel what they were about to speak of was going to change his point of view of things. Placing an ornate-looking scroll in his desk with a serious face, the Hokage began. Now that you are a full-on Chunin, I feel it is time to fully initialize the Fallen Leaves program that we started so long ago. You may have saved my life in this previous attack, but I feel you have only prolonged the inevitable. Fallen Leaves? We started. What the hell is going on? Naruto asked with arms crossed. What did he not know, because he was sure he never started anything in the past like this named program? We figured you would be confused. Hiruzen sighed as he unrolled the scroll to reveal a complex-looking seal. Naruto recognized that as a storage seal mixed with a blood seal, something vaguely familiar to him that dealt with the psyche and a preservative seal. When I picked the leader of the Fallen Leaves, he felt that he was not ready, but most leaders are never ready. However, he had the forethought to predict a few things and set a few things in motion that led to you be sealed and bringing out the facade we created for you. We felt it was necessary to fool Root enough that they would not suspect that we knew what was going to happen. Would you like to meet the leader? Since it feels like I am missing something, yes I would. Naruto replied, hating feeling like he was in the dark here. The old man was telling him these things as he should already know. That was concerning to him. Hiruzen nodded once before facing the seal over to Naruto. Shrugging, Naruto slammed his hand on the seal, adding chakra to activate it. The seal glowed brightly before a poof of smoke briefly obscured their vision. When it dissipated, Naruto stared at someone leisurely sitting on the desk. Some kid. No, not just some kid. He was looking at a far younger version of himself, where he only had one eye. He was a leader? What? You lost me. Naruto deadpanned, looking past his clone to the old man, hoping this was some joke. At this point, I would hope you would be lost. I am sure things don't seem right to you, like something was missing. Like you were missing something and that was me, the kid said, getting the original's attention back on him. Things were happening too fast with Root that we had to do something. Root was getting too powerful and erratic. We had to make them believe we had no idea what they were planning. Make them believe that things were as they usually were while also picking up the pieces of a recent attack. And you had a plan? Of sorts. The leader replied. Thanks to Jiraiya, we knew that Danzo, a man that was both a part of the village council and the leader of an organization to usurp Konoha for his own gains, was giving up trying to control the village from the shadows. Instead, he was going to cause the fall of Konoha and create his stronghold in its place. That is when we figure we needed a contingency plan, the Fallen Leaves program. Jiraiya informed us that his new army would destroy us easily and with barely any warning. Then how would we fight that? How would we plan for something like that? Naruto asked, panic forming in his stomach. By remembering what the founders built in the first place. The young clone simply stated before poofing from existence. And it all came back to Naruto as he fell on his hands and knees as memories, plans, strategies, information rushed into him as pieces of a long-forgotten puzzle snapped into place for him. The leader's separate personality finally remerging with his own, completing himself as it were. It was all so overwhelming and he understood why he was so reluctant and felt that he was just not ready to be a leader, because it was all him. Konoha was a people, not merely a village. A fickle people but a united people nonetheless. He and Itachi formed a contingency plan with the Hokage and other selected members. He had created a seal that spilt his personality so badly, part of him going into the scroll to start everything off. The rest being sealed off to create an illusion that Danzo had nothing to worry about. For this plan to work, he had to rejoin that village that he hid himself from for so long and prove himself in a way to them. Otherwise, they would never follow him after the village fell and it was going to fall. They would lose people, but that would motivate them in the end as well. The only part they hadn't accounted for was where to regroup in the end. However, recent events with his family's own past came to mind. Using the homeland of the Uzumaki would be a great idea. But they had to find it first, so they would have to find something in the meantime. Then there was the brewing trouble of Itachi's family back then. So it was Itachi's idea of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, end the Uchiha and create a way into Danzo's forces but letting the man come to him after his defection from the village. The plans and strategies were all there in his mind now, and with them mostly being his, he understood his younger self's reluctance to be the leader. Too many things could go wrong. But most leaders had that kind of self-doubt. It was only natural. Naruto breathed in deeply before standing up and meeting the Hokage's eyes, the eyes of a leader, and nodding. Yeah, they had a plan to finish. Anoki smiled as his granddaughter cheered in celebration with her father. While she failed at the Chunin exams, they were a formality with him. He knew his shinobi and family well enough to promote them. Besides, with her mission record, she deserved to be promoted, and that is what he did. As they went off to celebrate with a meal, he frowned and looked out his window. The words of the Hokage brothering him. The next time you hear about Konoha, things will have changed. Something big was on the horizon, but he just wasn't sure what. In a darkly lit room, Sasuke Uchiha's body lay motionless. He wasn't dead, but heavily sedated from the natural pain a crushed and ripped out arm would create. As if materializing out of the shadows themselves, Danzo Shimura appeared and approached the boy with a few of his agents, and one man in a lab coat. He quietly observed the boy for a minute before saying, "A broken tool you may be, but a broken tool still has its uses." Turning the man next to him, Tanuki Shigaraki, "I think it is time we test out the Uzumaki technology we appropriated from their land before things went, south for them." Tanuki was a tall man with a light complexion with shaggy black hair. He had a narrow jawline with pronounced cheekbones and facial stubble. He wore a black kimono under his lab coat. He frowned and said, "Very well, sir, but I must warn you of a hidden seal I found within their prototype. Despite my knowledge of seals, I am unsure what this particular one does. It matters not to me. I just want to see if we can still use the boy or if his usefulness has ended prematurely." "I don't care about Itachi's threat," Danzo replied indifferently. He had a plan for that Uchiha anyway if he were to go against him. Tanuki nodded. Walking over to a nearby dimly lit table, he took what looked to be an arm completely made of metal and covered in seals. Reaching Sasaki, he began to attach the arm to the boy. A few seals lit up and attached themselves to his nerve endings and completely fused to the boy. Other seals lit up as they tested his chakra to work in conjunction with it, and then shut off, signifying a success. All seemed calm and correct in Tanuki's opinion, but he was waiting for the final seal to light up. The seal that he knew nothing about, and it did as he feared. He marveled at the complexity of it because it was still beyond him. At first, the seal just continuously flashed red, but then the very darkness around them bent, and covered the arm in a swirling mass. Both Danzo and Tanuki calmly watched as Sasuke's body rose of its own accord like it was possessed. As it hung there, the guards thought they were ready for what they were about to witness, but the darkness traveled to the rest of the boy's body, twisting and perverting it until he was no longer recognizable to them. The entity before them snapped its eyes open to reveal Sasuke's Senjutsu-enhanced Sharingan, only they glowed more brightly and a large white grin split its face. It observed the two for a moment before outstretching its arm, and Zabuz's large blade flew into its hand, the darkness perverting it as well. Then in a voice that echoed with many others said, "The demon Zabusa's executioner's blade, how fitting for what we are. And what exactly are you?" Danzo demanded more than asked. The entity chuckled darkly, something that sent shivers down the room's occupants, and instilled a primordial fear in them. "We are the last thing all life sees. We are the reason to fear the shadows. We are the END." Soon the laughter increased in volume and echoed off the walls as it disappeared into the shadows from whence it came, leaving just one more thing to say. "Your plans for this world are going to keep us busy for quite some time." Tanuki's analytical mind was trying to comprehend what they witnessed, and he could only come one thing. "I think that seal was meant to call forth death itself in order to try and control it. An experiment into nature itself. The Uzumaki were indeed as dangerous as predicted," Danzo stated ominously, glad he had manipulated events to cause their downfall. "But it doesn't matter anymore. Preparations for the fall are nearly complete. Tanuki, get the Gozu-Tenno ready. With the Kyuubi's presence in the village for so long, it should have created the necessary amount of negativity for that summon. And get that ready." "As you wish, sir." Tanuki replied with a bow and left the room with a grim look on his face. "You too, get in contact with Hanzo and have him prepare for my arrival," Danzo ordered. They nodded and disappeared, leaving the leader of Root alone in that dark and empty room. "If death itself knows about the fall and doesn't feel the need to stop me when it clearly can now, then I must have its blessing." After all, he felt that it was his destiny to end Konoha and twist everything into his worldview. What if Naruto awakens his parents' memory Chunin exams? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.